OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Armband against armband. He's got Seamus Coleman in front of him. He plays it to Rabiot. Rabiot just pulls the ball back around Coleman, then tries to play it across, but gives it away to Cullen. Cullen's giving it away though to Pavard, and he has a shot, and it comes off the top of the crossbar into the back of the net, and that's a dreadful mistake on the edge of the Irish box. Pavard, like an assassin, is in there to punish Ireland, and he scored the first goal of the night in the 50th minute.
Yeah, the only goal of the night, it turned out. Devo, Stephen Doyle on commentary there for the game last night. It's fine margins. Super Magnon save denies Ireland a deserved draw. Is the back of the Mail. Positives again, but no points. Magnon's stunning save denies Collins a late equaliser after Pavard's superb strike. Glove hurts. Tab of the morning to you. Wonder save denies Irish a draw as France edge thriller. And Nathan Collins talking to himself for about 10 minutes afterwards, just saying the same thing again and again and again and again. Pavard done by Magic Mike save, a killer for Kenny. Did you get the Magic Mike reference there?
Nice, like it, yeah.
Very good.
Well,
Mignon, by the way, speaking to some French speakers before the game yesterday, assured me.
As in filet mignon.
Filet.
Not
filet.
mignon.
No. Oh, no.
Get Cameron in here.
Mignon.
But it's M-A. Mignon. I don't know.
That's what our French. What would fluent French speakers know about the French language?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's bow to Ger's superior knowledge.
Shots fired.
Yeah. You studied European languages, did you?
That's Kenny Cunningham's voice there. I did get an A in my French, leaving Sir Kenny. I did, yeah.
Magic Mike, you be a Magic Mike fan, are you?
And they won when they were still giving them out. That's how old I am. The Magic Mike reference went over my head.
Good. Nearly Nathan as well, yeah.
Nearly Nathan. Mignon's miracle save denies gallant Ireland a point. Just for you, Kenny. I'm a sop to the mob. French woe for Ireland. Pavard strike enough to deny Kenny's men after battling effort. So let's be having you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Your views. What camp were you in before? What camp are you in now? Or can we not just analyse the game on its own merits there, Bill? We're going to try to anyway. Kenny, what did you make of it? Good morning to you first. How are you?
Yeah, all good. All good, thanks.
What did you make of it?
Do you want to be more specific, or is that it? Just a bland general question?
Feel positive or negative?
No, you fill in what you want. You say it's a bland general question, but sometimes you gotta I'm gonna listen to what you say, and then
is that why you're paid the big bucks? Is it? Is that it? Is that the best you can come up with? Boom, straight in. Yeah, I enjoyed a lot of aspects of the performance, but probably that little bit of frustration, like everybody else, at the end of it. Bit of pride in terms of the overall performance. I understood how we set up. I thought thought the defensive structure was really solid, very sound, held up really well against a very talented French team. Yeah, but just that little bit of frustration in terms of the nature of the goal, really how we gave it up. I can understand it'd be an easy thing to say, Josh, wouldn't he just hoof it up the pitch? Exactly what I would have done in that situation. But of course, we're looking to play a different way under Stephen. We're looking to be a little bit more progressive with our passing and work our way up the pitch a little bit. And it was just a misjudgment on his part. You could tell what he was trying to do. Just pop the ball to Jason Knight and kind of work our way up the pitch, which we had to do because we only played with one central striker last night, which might have been a slight surprise. All the chat during the week was who's going to play up front with Evan Ferguson. What's going to be the preferred striking partnership? Is it going to be Obafemi who's going to pace in behind? Will it be Ogbene? Did he do enough in his cameo against Latvia? So it was all about that striking partnership up front, and we didn't see that. Surprised us a little bit maybe in terms of throwing Ogbene off the right. So we had a flat midfield four really out possession of the football, and Evan Ferguson kind of as a lone central striker. And I understood it against the French. If you play with two up front and a narrow three in midfield, you kind of open yourself up a little bit down the sides. And we know the quality the French have down the sides. So Jason Knight on the left, Chidozie Ogbene on the right, out of possession, doubled up with Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman, nullified the threat of their wingers. Mbappe was like I don't know who that imposter was in wearing Mbappe's jersey last night, but yeah, he had an awful night.
Bad game, wasn't it, for him? Just
Yeah.
anonymous.
Yeah, dreadful, to be honest with you. Like, a number of the French players, in all honesty, never turned up. Actually, they gave the type of performance that we were hoping for. There was an argument in terms of coming off the back of the Dutch game. Maybe there might be a little bit of a drop off collectively in terms of the French performance. Focus, concentration wouldn't quite be there, wouldn't be at the level they were against the Dutch, and that's probably how it panned out. Now, we can argue about how well we played, absolutely right, but they were way off it last night. A kind of window of opportunity I felt presented itself, and we very nearly took it, and that's the kind of frustration. Steadied in the game for long periods, conceded a goal, but the good thing when we conceded a goal, heads didn't drop, concentration levels were still good. You know, we steadied in the game and came on strong with a couple of substitutions from the manager, kind of laid on a push for the equaliser and very nearly got it. And if we had have, I think we could have said with some justification we'd earned it, and I think that would have been fair. But at the same time, having lost the game 1-0, can't quite bring myself to say that we was robbed.
No.
In terms of having lost the game. So when people talk about fine margins, which I understand,
but as you said,
probably about right.
That 1-0 quite easily could have turned to 2-3, 4-0. Do you know, with any other team, you can drop the heads, let France get back in the game and properly kill us off. But the fact that Ireland pushed on and nearly got the point, that's hugely positive, isn't it? Because that quite easily could go to 3.
Yeah, there was positives from the front, but the positives for me really came from our defensive structure. And there's been times previously under previous managers where I felt we've looked very open and a little bit shoddy out of possession. You know, no real cohesion in terms of what we were doing, defensive organisation. That wasn't the case last night. Very quickly early on, you could see Chidozie Ogbene had been asked to play off the right side, and very quickly looked at it and thought, yeah, I can see this. We look really solid here. You know, they're not gonna punch through us very easily tonight. But just felt as if in terms of working our way up the pitch, and I spoke about quick counter-attacking against the French. If we can pinch it off them, even in our own half the pitch, we'd have a real opportunity to hurt them counter-attack with Evan Ferguson and another up the pitch. We'd have 2 targets, Ger, to hit when we won the ball back. Put a ball over the side, real pace with Obafemi and potentially Ogbene in behind, but we didn't quite see that because of how deeply we defended. Evan Ferguson was our only really target when we won the ball back. Chidozie Ogbene done great trying to join in from that right hand side, but it's different. He was coming from a deeper position in midfield. I mean, there was one chance first half. We played the ball over the top, I don't know if you remember, to Evan Ferguson. It was a clip ball over the top of the inside left channel, and he raced down the side 1v1 Upamecano, I think it was, and he swiveled straight away and put a cross into the box. It was a great cross.
No one there.
Yeah, there was nobody there. Yeah. And it was Chidozie Ogbene was the one trying to get there from a kind of deeper position. But of course, if he'd have been starting higher up the pitch alongside him, he's probably coming onto that, maybe getting his head onto it. But so it's the yin and the yang, isn't it? You know, for what you gain in terms of the defensive solidity, you lose a little bit in terms of getting maybe a bit of traction at times in the opposition half the pitch. But I could understand it, and I thought it was a smart move. As soon as I saw it, I thought, I wasn't scratching my head thinking, oh, what are we doing here? We're not playing with the front 2. Chidozie off the right. I understood it totally because of the qualities which the French have. So there was a plan there in place, and it very nearly paid off for us.
So close.
Yeah, like you've got to look at this in the round with the journey that the team has been on, to use that terrible phrase. The journey that the team has been on from like being able to pull off one-off performances against Portugal, for example. I was just chatting with Phil about this outside. The Portugal game was a bit of an island, right? Because either side of it we performed badly, but we were capable of putting in a big one-off performance. This didn't feel like it was just a big one-off performance. We could be completely wrong, right? And so that'll be borne out over the course of the rest of the group. This is the first of the qualifiers. But if we were to build on this, the reason that I think we can build on this is that everybody was doing a job that they knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing. We've played this way, like with the flexibility of Chidozie off the right? But we've played this way. This is our style now, and everybody was fit and everybody showed up. There's a bit of depth now as well. If certain players are injured, we might be able to play this way again. I thought it was interesting that Collins had his best game, like much better than the Latvia game. He was stepping into midfield when he needed to, and I can see that this will, if this is our basis, then everything's going to be okay. if this is a one-off where we've put in a massive collective performance because it is France, then it's up to the performances against Greece, and that's the unknown in all this.
Yeah, but I'll be interested. Well, I don't think we'll play this way against Greece. Well, I hope not, to be honest with you. Greece will present their own challenges, and they're not playing at the level of this French team. So I'm sure Stephen and the coaching staff will be looking at the Greece game, albeit it's away from home, and the temptation will to be just to tweak things a little bit. I don't think the back five will change. That's pretty much set in stone. I agree with your back three look comfortable. They get more comfortable in each other's skin. I think that back three of Collins, Egan and Ger Shane, very solid again last night. James, I thought, done great. We'll never know if Callum O'Dowd had been fit, maybe if those wing back positions would have changed. But I was always a fan of playing Seamus in that kind of right back position last night. Just his experience, kind of defensive noose up against Mbappe.
He's also playing really well at the moment. Like he's fit.
Yeah, he is fit, but you probably look at Seamus in probably his best position in that system that we're playing. It's probably right side of a three. He went in there for the last 15-20 minutes and looked very comfortable there as well. But he was smart against Mbappe. He got up against him, didn't allow him to turn. Probably the only time Mbappe did in the first half, he opened his body up, he ran at Shane, he knocked it past him. I don't know if you remember it, but it was great defending. It was a real cameo why it was a smart decision to put Seamus there, because he fronted Seamus up. Seamus gave himself about 3 yards head start, which is all you can do. Like, you can't drop 10 yards off.
Yeah.
You drive on your inside. But he knocked it past Seamus straight away, took a big touch, knocked it past him. Seamus kind of bumped him after a couple of yards, kind of bumped into him, knocked him off balance. And when he tried to cut across Seamus, he dived in and made a great well-timed tackle, gave away a corner kick. So that's what I'm talking about, kind of that kind of intelligence in 1v1 situations. That's why it was a smart move to play Seamus over there. So that's all. That back five unit for me is great. Looks solid. Obama Diallo will come into the equation there. I think if he gets a bit more game time, O'Dowd might come back into the equation, a kind of left wing back. But it's that midfield and front there for me, which is going to be key. So if you're saying to me like that a Greece game, you're saying nothing can change. That blanket midfield four and lone central striker. For me, I'm thinking no. I think we can tinker with things.
Yeah.
For me, can we think about that front two? Can we think about getting Ogbene in that central striking position up alongside Ferguson, and maybe in that midfield three? Is there an argument for getting Smallbone in there, a bit more of a creative edge in there at the expense of either maybe Jason or Knight for that particular game? Gives you a little bit more of a player in midfield. You play a bit more possession based, maybe gain control a little bit more in that central area. So those things for me are kind of interesting going forward, and they're going to be important, those kind of key tactical decisions.
What about Jason Malumbi's performance? Like, there was the moment early on where he tried to get the crowd G'd up. Did he win a throw in or something? Maybe was it?
I think he made a run back.
Sorry, he tackled. Yeah,
there was a counter attack, and it was like, France are going to counter attack. This is going to be sliding to fair post. Somebody's going to run it. We've seen this a million times.
It's brilliant. His performance was just
he done great. Yeah, but we're going to need more than that. Ger's talking about it's a new day. We're playing it a different way. Well, we didn't play that way last night, and I understand why we didn't. There was an individual.
Sorry,
the qualities with
just to interrupt, right? Because one of our chances, I think it's the Jason Knight chance in the second half, comes from us being under intense pressure in our own penalty area, and we were super calm. I think that's different. I do think that's a significant change. And so we are. There is an evolution. It's not finished, I would say, but that's like under any of our managers, I would say. Ever, the advice is to the keeper: you hoof that, you bang that long, and we'll have two big lads up front who are going to hold it up and wait for the cavalry to arrive. But we didn't do that, and we created a chance off the back of it. So I do think there's been a subtle evolution.
It was more than a subtle. Generally speaking, in terms of how the manager Steve's looking for the team to play, absolutely, I think there's been a big sea change in terms of how we're looking to play. But that wasn't evident last night. But I understand it in terms of the nature of the performance last night, in terms of who we were up against. So
was it not evident last night? Is that not evidence that we were passing it out from the back even under pressure, and it did create a chance for us? Is that not evidence that it was? We did see it last night.
Yeah, in that instance, in terms of playing out from the back, did we squeeze to the halfway line and shell at 60 yards? No, we didn't. We were looking to play it, but by nature, how we set up the team last night, it was always going to be difficult for us to gain a significant amount of possession of the football, particularly high up the pitch in the opposition half the pitch. We couldn't get a foothold up there, couldn't really get any sustained pressure on the French goal for any real period, maybe until the last 10, 15 minutes of the game.
That was never going to happen, really, was it? Sustained pressure.
No, it was never going to be easy, and it certainly was. It was never going to happen. Maybe in terms of how we set up. For me, as soon as we sacrificed that one central striker, made it probably a little bit more difficult. But like I said, I could understand it. I could understand the conversation between manager and coaching staff during the week. How we're going to strike that balance between that defensive solidity and also offering an attacking threat. So yeah, I could understand that totally. You're right that playing out from the back second half, that's absolutely phenomenal. But of course, by trying to play out on the edge of the box, they led to us conceding a goal. Yeah. So that's the kind of risk and the and the reward. Yeah, but nobody's complaining generally, I think, in terms of how we're looking to play. And I certainly wasn't complaining about the setup last night. I understand we got very close to getting a result of draw last night. But for me, different challenges ahead. The Greece game presents a different challenge. I'll be fascinated to see any kind of those little modifications which they make for that game, because I think we'll have to approach that game slightly differently, and obviously a lot more importance attached to that game now. Off the back, we haven't got a point last night. You just feel psychologically important we take something from that game. I think that'll be a body blow for to go over there, get turned over by Greece. No points from 6 from our first 2 games. I wouldn't say it's a long road back. It's early in the group, don't get me wrong, but this is it. Every game is international football. Pressure comes with every single game.
Yeah. That's why we're here. That's why you play the game. The lads will be loving. I understand that, but that's it. So that's for me the different set of challenges in the next game, and maybe we just might have to tweak things in terms of our setup. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very heartened by the performance of the players last night. I think the fans bought into it. Wasn't like rocking, lads. I was there. It wasn't rocking from the first minute to the last. Not a huge amount of goal mouths.
I thought it was rocking. It was rocking at the start, and then it's like, oof, this is so tense. Yeah. And last 10 minutes it came back again.
Exactly. But I think the fans kind of understood. People who know their football had a look and said, yeah, I can see what we're doing here. And at times they tried to get up and get behind the team. The lads kind of encouraged that. That was a small indication of players trying to get the fans up. Come on, here we. Yeah.
I like that. I think there's a big connection between the team and the fans.
Gavin Bazunu was very good. Like, he took the sting out of the game at the times where he needed to. And I know, like, we kind of touched on Caoimhín Kelleher's performance against Latvia wasn't the best, but he really stamped his authority in that number 1 jersey. Like, Caoimhín's a brilliant number 2 to have, let's be honest, but Bazunu's performance, I thought last night was pretty good.
Yeah, very assured. Didn't have a huge amount of what he did, very competent. I thought actually the chance they had first half, France, the only chance, the ball played in behind.
Was it the ping pong one or was it the long shot?
It was the Moop Meccano played the ball over the top. Mawani made that diagonal run across Matt Doherty in behind Darrow Shea. And obviously he came out initially, which made him have the touch sideways, but he didn't totally commit himself. He put the brakes on. Seeing keepers come out there and just clear the player out, dive at the feet and give away a penalty. He didn't show a bit of composure. Stetton's feet pushed him to the side. Although he didn't make a save, it was actually kind of great goalkeeping. And then there was a couple of saves second half. The Diaby save you'd expect him to make, and a smart save from Rabiot really caught his shot. He got a good hand on it. Came for a cross. His kicking was solid. Nothing nervy about his distribution. So yeah, it was a rock solid display from him, and good individual performances all over the pitch. I have to say.
Yeah, did he make a save from the Griezmann header, or did it just go wide? It just went wide. Yeah, there was no wasn't on target. I thought, like, there was a ball from Collins to Ferguson, and I don't think he got in the end of it, but it was close enough. And you're like, it's a 21-year-old to an 18-year-old, maybe 21-year-old goalkeeper. Like, this is the bones of a team now for the next decade, and I'm confident that they're all going to develop. I'm confident that they're playing, or they're going to be capable of playing, whoever the manager is, they're going to be capable of playing whatever style is required of them, because they have the skill sets to be expressive with the ball. They're not scared of the ball. They're not like,
undoubtedly. There's real talent. There's real talent there, and you're right. I'm excited. They're young talent as well. I think people really kind of gravitate towards that. I think our supporters can see that. But I suppose ultimately we're all the same supporters, and even the players are they'll be hungry for some kind of success,
just a win, something to rally the crowd and get everybody behind, because it's not a win.
Yeah, but ultimately you want to play in the biggest stage of all. You want to qualify for the major championships. That's what it's all about, European and World Cups. We've missed out of late, so there must be a real kind of hunger and desire amongst the playing squad to kind of punch through. And I think the supporters as well, we feel as if it's been a long time since we were part of a major tournament. So that's kind of driving the whole thing as well. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's ultimately where we want to be. So we got to get the foundation blocks in place. And that's what, the new management team have been trying to do over the past couple of years. And you're excited about, I think a lot of people are, Yeah, but fundamentally, we want that tangible.
I mean, if
tangible
results.
proof of that kind of progress in terms of
the difference
results
between
and qualification.
the Collins header going in and not going in is seismic, because there's just this sluicing of relief from the whole country behind it, where there's still some people who are like, I'd like to get behind this team, they're doing a lot of good stuff, but I'm just not sure, they might break my heart again.
How did your heart feel when that Pavard goal went in? Like it was so unlike Josh Cullen to give the ball away in that instance, but it was just so.
Do you remember
gutting.
that goal? Do you remember the goal he scored? Was it 2008
World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, phenomenal striking.
I had forgotten it. I had to look it up. I'd totally forgotten that game. It finishes 4-3.
Yeah.
Now it was 4-2, and then Messi scores in the 97th minute.
Far better strike than that tech. So he's got it in his locker, and it was interesting when he broke through. He had Mawani on his. It was almost a 2v1 against that O'Shea, and I was expecting him just to suck that in and play in Mawani, which is generally what you do. You got a forward-thinking player. You're an orthodox full-back, strokes centre half. But this lad backs himself, and he had a poor night, Pavard, as a lot of the French players did. A lot didn't go right for him. Picked up an early booking as well. I thought he was going to get dragged. I thought it was only a matter of time before he gets pulled and that Kunde comes off. He's a bit of a liability there. It hasn't happened for him at all. And then he steps up and hits a strike as well as that. I mean, it wasn't even in the top corner. If you're looking from behind, probably 3 yards inside the post, but he hits it so hard.
That's
precision high into the net.
Yeah,
phenomenal strike.
Kevin Doyle on the telly was like, I think maybe Bazunu could have done better. First time we saw it, I was like, I don't know about that, Kevin.
No,
I'm not so sure. I think that was.
No, it was just because it didn't do it justice. One of them, the slow mo really doesn't. You look at the slow mo, you think it's 3 yards inside the post there, and he's not that far away from it, Gavin. But
40 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, when he hit it originally, you thought, oh my God, stop it. Yeah.
Okay, OTB AM live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back Neon Night edition available now. Kenny's obviously with us for the next hour or so. If you want to get your thoughts in, you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/offtheball. I'm going to do some of your comments now. JP Wright says, is Kenny the unluckiest manager we've ever had? I admire his braveness and his vision, but the poor guy just can't get a rub of the green. Ireland were excellent last night. Hang on, someone's deleting on me here. Ireland were excellent last night. They've set down a marker now for performance levels going forward. That's the thing, right? So we all remember the night in Paris where Thierry Henry handled the ball. It was a sensational performance from the Ireland football team. We played brilliant football that night.
From nowhere, that performance, didn't it? Absolutely, yeah.
It came from nowhere, and that group never played at the same level again. They never, that was a last thing of a dying wasp. All those players desperately trying to qualify. And then eventually we qualified for a tournament and didn't go very well. And there was also a suggestion that they ignored the manager's instructions that night and decided that they were just going to, Duffer and Keane. This is the story. Duffer and Keane, we're just going to do this, right? I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, it was out keeping, wasn't it? It kind of blew us away a bit, the performance that night. But I thought the balance, you probably remember that game. I can't remember that game too clear, but I got a sense that night, that wasn't a case of circling the wagons around the kind of penalty box. We really offered an attacking threat that night against the French. We broke out really good kind of
control the ball in midfield against
a reasonable amount of
really
possession.
Brilliant French side. Yeah.
So I suppose that's the kind of ideal what we're looking for in terms of that real solid defensive structure, but springing out from that, Ger, and really offering an attacking threat as well.
Now, we were 1-0 down obviously as well, so that does alter your mindset a little bit. France were defensive from the start, going, sure, look, all we have to do is hold them off, it'll be grand, and then they cheated us. But anyway, my point was that was again a unicorn. That never happened around that. This needs not to be a unicorn performance.
Well, the average age, you pointed it out, was totally different last night compared to that night. Yeah, which is so positive.
Yeah, it's true. I guess the Portugal performance when Ronaldo breaks our hearts was also a bit of a unicorn in that we didn't perform that well against other sides. My hope is that there's enough in the structure here, notwithstanding you're saying we need to tweak it, but whatever those tweaks are, that everybody understands what their role is going to be. There's a clarity of thought, there's a clarity of purpose, and that leads to good results.
Yeah, well, that's the hope. Yeah, absolutely. I think we could all certainly row in behind that. Yeah, undoubtedly.
It doesn't just feel like a hope. Do you know what I mean? It feels like
it is at the moment. Yeah, it is a hope at the moment because I suppose we haven't seen that in terms of results. So far, we haven't seen enough in terms of to suggest with real kind of confidence. Oh, it's only a matter of time before we make that breakthrough, and that kind of run of success in terms of results is going to come our way. I take your point on what you're saying in terms of shoots of optimism, the average age of the team, but the reality is no guarantee young talent, and we're talking elite international football here.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of international teams out there who can point to some real, a sprinkling of young talent within the squad, and we certainly have that. But those players have to kind of realise their potential. They have to factor in terms of good organisation and preparation, tactical setup, and that's where the managers, coaches, staff come in.
I suppose that's what I'm saying.
They make an impact. Roll all of that together. But I think confidence as well, in terms of, don't underestimate in terms of results how much that can help players' kind of confidence and growth together collectively. Easy to come out after the game, another defeat, and talk it up and kind of be bold and positive. But until you can see it, you can experience it as a player. Until you roll off a pitch against a team with the quality of the French, with a draw, having beaten them, and you're sat in the dressing room with the players after the game, you're looking at each other saying, yeah, now we've arrived. The belief is there. You're looking at each other thinking, we're good enough to compete in this company, rather than, not trudging off, but coming off a little bit dispirited, another defeat, and trying to rally the troops a little bit. Look, good days are ahead.
I think last night
keep going.
That does prove that they can compete in that company, because you look at a team of Championship and League One players realistically against a team of World Cup winners. But last night, and like we kind of spoke about it, was Jean-Philippe Auclair said it yesterday. He was like, at the end of the day, it's 11 players against 11 players. Do you know? So they might be World Cup winners and Ireland might not be, but at the end of the day, it's just a match, and they show that they can play to that level when it needs be. Maybe it's because it's at home, maybe it's because it's World Cup winners. It's easy to get up for those big games, but as you say, you have to get up for the Greece games and the Gibraltar games, probably even more so. And that's been probably a drawback on the Irish team in recent years as well, that they don't seem to get up for maybe the lesser games.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that. I think that's too harsh. That suggests like a lack of kind of application. That don't take those games.
Portugal and a Serbia, they're easy games to get up for. France, an easy game to get motivated for.
But I wouldn't say the Irish team haven't got. I didn't think they didn't get up for the game against Latvia. I'd never question in terms of mentality or their application in terms of the players. Just feel as if you can break down the performances at times, and maybe we can have a conversation about was the balance of the team right, individual selections, and say where did we play in the kind of right areas, where we looking to get the ball from back to front kind of quickly enough, and all of those general conversations which most teams would have. I think that's all fine, that's all well and good, to be honest with you, but I'd never question in terms of the mentality of the players. And I think you're right, there's a real kind of togetherness amongst this group. You can see, you saw a bit of it last night, didn't we, in terms of how some of the players reacted with the fans. That's great to see. Don't like to see too much of it.
Fair enough.
There, you know what I mean? But it's great. That's spontaneous. You saw with Jason Malumbi, Nathan Collins, and that's genuine, and that's why I don't mind. You can sense it. You can sense like their attachment, their emotional attachment to the jersey.
Look, there's a smell of want off us. I know that there's a smell of want off us, but I feel like they deserve something, that they've put the hard work in, that they have a plan, that they've thought about the various challenges, they've thought about the available resources, and it feels like there's a plan, right? And you got to grab it. You say you deserve it. It's not like a handed to you. Like elite sports. Clint Eastwood standing over Gene Hackman and Unforgiven. Dessert's got nothing to do with it.
You got to grab
the head off me there, Kenny. Thanks.
Exactly. Nobody's gonna hand it to you. Look, that was a really spirited performance, great character. There you go. You know what I mean? You've got to literally, you've got to go and grab it. And that's just that next small step which we have to make.
Il Postino 88 says, last night was a total outlier, far better reflection of where the squad is after June. I mean, look, we know that the results against the teams in June are going to ultimately define where we end up finishing in the group, but a point from the games against France would have been great. I think a lot of people are overreacting, I think, to Holland's performance on Friday night. There was a dose of the shits running through the team, and half the team were sick, so they didn't play. They didn't have half their team. And I think that, maybe if they had their full team, they would have been slightly better against France on Friday night. So we shall see. OTBAM with Gillette Labs got the ultimate shave or your money back in the all-night edition available now. We're going to take a quick break. Treacy standing by. Philippe Auclair after that. We'll get John Duggan's thoughts as well. We're also going to talk to Cora Staunton, and we'll play our Kellie Harrington interview a little bit later on as well. But in the meantime, quick break. Treacy up next.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. OTB GAA.
It's not about hype, and I love Kevin's attitude. It's a lot more enjoyable when you're winning. That's what Mayo have done throughout this league, and from that you get positivity and confidence, and they are at the moment the best team playing the best football in the country.
Subscribe to the OTB GAA podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts.
The Heineken Champions Cup is back. Leinster take on Ulster in the round of 16, Saturday, April 1st at 5:30 in the Aviva Stadium. Join the Sea of Blue for this massive inter-provincial clash. Tickets on sale now at leinsterrugby.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Alright, Kenny's chatting away in the break there. I can't hear a thing because I've got my earphones in, Kenny.
Alright, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Keith Treacy's with us. Keith, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, very well, thanks.
What did you make of our attacking play last night? We haven't talked about that yet.
The reason we haven't talked about it because there wasn't an awful lot of it, but we played percentage football, but you have to do things like that against the French. I thought it was a hybrid approach, which, yeah, again, I thought worked well at times. The first couple of minutes, Evan Ferguson runs down to the channel. He ends up turning and crossing it, and there's nobody in the box. But we played good football, but I think there's just a little bit of a diluted message. I think if Kenny nails down especially before the French game, you tell everybody we don't mess around on the edge of our 18-yard box. We don't play, because that's Pavard who scores that goal, by the way. That's the French right back. So Cullen playing that ball across our 18-yard box has to see that Pavard is out of position. Just clip that ball into the channel, get Ogbenny running, get Evan Ferguson running. He doesn't. He plays a sideways ball, which are always dangerous balls, especially in their own half, and we get punished. But in terms of our attacking play, we only really look dangerous towards the end when we start pumping balls into the box. There was no real open play looking good. There was endeavour. Ogbenny was giving Theo Hernandez a hard time, but in terms of actually getting on the half turn, playing balls through, there wasn't really an awful lot of that.
Was our best opportunity not the one that fell tonight that got blocked by Griezmann? And did that not come from playing inside? That was like with Bazunu to Coleman. Was it Doherty at that stage, or who was? It would have been. I can't actually remember who.
Bennett got down the right hand side. Yeah. He dropped the shoulder and drove down the right hand side. He could have played Evan Ferguson in the second half. He didn't.
Oh yeah.
He eventually popped it across the. Jason, I think the one you're talking about, he came on the inside the edge of the box, and it was a block. Yeah,
but I don't. Again, did it end up in a shot on target? Did the keeper have to save it? And it was a block shot. And again, I understand.
He should have got shot away.
We're getting half chances, but again,
when it's League One versus Champions League,
I understand that. But the only time we ever looked dangerous was the Collins header, and when we started putting balls into the box. So why not do that against the French? I'm not saying do it for every team that comes to the Aviva, but when the French come, get the ball out wide. Theo Hernandez is not a great defender, and we knew he was going to be left 1v1 because Mbappe's up the pitch.
Could he have been booked for persistent fouling? Is this my GA?
Yeah,
three times pushing somebody in the back. That's a yellow card, and then you stick Mikey Johnson on him, and you go, okay, let's see what happens now. Anyway.
Yeah, well, he did. He was a bit silly a couple of times. He ran into the back of Ogbenny, and it was just the physical attributes of Ogbenny he didn't want. And yeah, look, I think we could have played on it a bit more, but the French had an off day. We were a little bit better than we probably expected, and yeah, again, it's just another kick in the teeth that we didn't get at.
What did you make of Stephen Kenny's in-game decisions, the subs? So just look at the subs. So Ida's 65th minute, then that's the triple sub on 77. You have McLean, Johnston and Brown, and then of course Obafemi comes on late. But do you feel he got the decisions in-game right, Keith? Or?
I think his hands were tied a bit. I'd love to see Evan Ferguson stay on down the stretch for the last 20 minutes, because we know he's the one that we're all putting our hopes in to hit the back of the net. But I understand why he was taken off. The workload he got through was massive. He was in quite a physical battle with Upamecano and Kanate as well. So I understand why he was taken off, and Ida's a good target man as well. We could have got up around him. Mikey Johnson coming on, he's electric in and around.
He's lively, isn't he?
Picking up second ball. So I understand all the changes, and I don't, I would have loved to see Evan Ferguson stay on, of course, but I understand all the reasons they were made. Such a heavy workload the lads were getting through.
Yeah.
I suppose you mentioned about keeping him on the pitch. If you keep him on the pitch, how can you keep him on the pitch? Maybe throw someone up alongside him. We've spoken about it, playing with the two down the central area of the pitch. Obviously Evan came on, Adam came on by himself in isolation. Now we got Mikey Johnson and Ogbenny either side of him, kind of a narrow three for the remainder of the game. But I'll probably, I'd agree with Keith to an extent. Maybe keeping Ferguson on, getting Adam Ida up alongside him as a two, just to kind of share the workload a bit, and hoping maybe something might just drop for Evan Ferguson, probably our best finisher inside the penalty box. But I'd agree with Keith. Physically, you could tell he was struggling probably 5-10 minutes before he was substituted. So I think the substitutions were were absolutely fine. I could understand the Seamus slotting in right of the three. Alan Brown, attacking player.
Alan Brown was
and
good.
He's a goal threat.
Yeah.
And Alan's a goal threat. It was a half chance, one across into the box late on to the back post from James. As Keith suggested, a little bit more of a cut and thrust down the left hand side when James came on. It's decent. His delivery's decent, isn't it? And that shot from Alan, kind of a half chance. That's all it was.
Keith, we talked last week before the games about the treating the two games separately, and it seems like they treated the two games as a block, basically trying to get the team as prepared and as fresh as they could for the France game, as opposed to caring too much in retrospect about the Latvia friendly.
Yeah, but see, that was the one thing. I spoke to Kenny Niaviva about this last night. I mean Kenny Cunningham now, not Stephen Kenny. Just that we should maybe change it up a bit. Like when Latvia come, we played a very similar formation to the formation we played last night, and I just think we need to be a little bit more expansive, trust our attacking players, because if we can't break the likes of Latvia down from open play and look good against them, we're not going to be able to go toe to toe with the French.
Yeah, now you could argue that our problem against Latvia was that we were unable to tackle them properly and close the ball down, which we were grand at last night. So I do think there was an element of this is still only Latvia, whereas the points on offer for the tournament raised the standard of the whole team last night.
Yeah, and I think Stephen Kenny will have to, I said this last night as well, I think the standard has been set in terms of work rate. I think that's the work rate we need to demand from every single game, whether it's France or whether it's Latvia. I think the minimum requirement is maximum effort. We got that last night, and the French on paper are a million miles above us, but we outworked them. Every player outworked the opposition player they were up against, and it brought the level a little bit closer, and we hustled and bustled. Not an awful lot of goal mount action, but that suited us down to the ground. And the checkpoint was, with 20 minutes to go, still be in the game.
Yeah.
And we were still in the game.
Do you think that base camp has been established and that this is something to build on as opposed to a one-off performance? We don't know, because the evidence, the proof will be in the pudding, but what's your instinct?
I hope not. I hope Stephen Kenny, Keith Andrews, I hope they're nailing that down and saying, get the running stats out and say that's the bare minimum every single game. Because if we work that hard against the majority of the teams that we play, we'll get something out of the game. If we start picking and choosing when we want to work that hard, we'll start coming undone again. So if we work that hard against Greece, I know it's June, I know it's going to be hot. We're going to have to keep the ball an awful lot better. But if our work rate is up or thereabouts, we will beat the so-called lower teams.
Athens experiences hot temperatures throughout the summer months, with June, July and August all bringing average daily highs of at least 30, although temperatures of over 40 have been recorded.
Yeah, so when I talk about different
Steve Staunton job.
Not one of us would perform under those.
No.
That's going to be a different challenge. So Keith's right generally in terms of that kind of work rate endeavour, but to be honest with you, I never remembered watching an Ireland team too often in the past and thinking, this lot could work a bit harder. We need a harder shift. The intensity levels were phenomenal last night, I agree with that, but that's never been a thing that's held us back in terms of lack of application.
Does it feel like
on behalf of the players?
Does it feel like they're applied to a plan? That's the thing.
There's a real plan, there's a real cohesion. You could tell we were prepared, good organisation last night. That's what I'm saying. I was delighted to see that. But like I said, the Greece game, that's what we're going to be talking about next. So we talk about the Latvia game. But I think that opening 20-25 minutes against Latvia, I was reasonably impressed with how we played in possession of the football. I thought we had a certain element of control against them. I thought a combination play between Will Smallbone and Matt Doherty down the right hand side was interesting. I thought they looked comfortable in each other's skin. And we worked the ball. We were quite progressive with our passing, particularly down the right hand side. A real element of control to the game, which I think we're going to need in that Greece game for some of the reasons that you were saying in terms of the temperatures, etc. So that's what I'm saying. I think he's going to have to flip it a little bit against Greece in terms of personnel and even in terms of the formation. But you can do that. It doesn't mean we got to go 4-3-3 and totally pull the whole thing apart. That back five unit, I think, stays in place, but I'm sure he'd be looking in front of that.
You're not sure about the back five, are you?
No, not against the lower teams. And look, against Latvia, I would say, Kenny saying, you saying that the first 20-30 minutes, probably the first 20 minutes we were good. After we scored the second goal, we took our foot off the gas, and we allowed Latvia into the game. Look, at their first goal, it's a brilliant goal. It can happen against anybody, but it was the fact that we didn't seem to recover. We looked really nervous all of a sudden. We looked shaky at the back, and there was no real leader just telling everybody to calm down. There was nobody saying, I'll get on the ball and I'll calm all this down and I'll make people around me calm down. It was just sort of panic stations, and we let them back in. And then look, we wrestled the back, and it's difficult to do when the tide starts turning on the pitch. We wrestled the back and we won 3-2, but I wasn't overly impressed by what we did.
I think we
against
needed
Latvia.
a few players needed. It was good. I looked at that Latvia game initially and thought I could have done without that hole in the head. Really, would have been great to have the week lead up to the French game. But the closer we got to it, in terms of the players who hadn't had game time at club level, I think it served us well. You spoke about Nathan Collins, how well he played last night. I think it helped him having that game time against Latvia. It was actually a bit rusty, a bit loose
Probably Doherty
against
as well.
Latvia. But there was a number of players. So I actually think it served a little bit of a purpose for us in terms of sharpening a few players up.
You mentioned
for the French game.
You mentioned Will Smallbone there. Like, was he hard done by not to be involved whatsoever, even off the bench? Was it a game for him? I know hindsight's obviously 2020, but like, should he have at least come off the bench last night?
He played well against Latvia. I'll give him that. He really did. Him and Doherty were creating overloads out on the right wing. He was floating around, picking up nice positions. He seems to be the one who can play on the half turn, and he's given us that little bit of interest. But again, you have to take the opposition into account. It was Latvia and this is France, so it was deep water to be asking him to go into.
Yeah, I think that like they were getting him in the squad, they were giving him a taste of action, they were saying go off and come back to us in 6 months' time, and you're in the mix. But the France game, like, he was tried and tested. There was, with the exception of Mikey Johnson, I think.
Yeah, I'd have to say though, he really impressed me against Latvia. Not so much in terms of in possession of football, because we've probably seen a lot of them play with the 21s, so that wasn't a surprise. A very talented footballer, but I've always looked at him and think in terms of how we play, we can't carry anybody out of possession, particularly in our midfield, and that's why Knight, Malumbi and Cully don't carry any of them when you haven't got the ball, because of their defensive discipline, their tenacity, the aggression which they have. That was so important last night. But I looked at Smallbone against Latvia out of possession, and he wasn't shirking it, in terms of getting himself back in his defensive shape. Physically, for me, he looked in a better placed and conditioned than he was maybe a year ago. Almost looked at him, thought he looks a little bit kind of lightweight, a little bit powder puff. So all those signs were good. So I looked at him against Latvia. No quality opposition, you're right, but I looked at him against Latvia, thought, you know what, he's impressed. Doesn't look as if, we're going to have to carry him if we haven't got the ball. And that's important, because when we do get the ball, and people talk about a creative edge in midfield, as good as Jason Knight, Malumbi and Josh Cunningham, I'm a big fan of, but we haven't got that type of player who can receive the ball under pressure on the half turn and playing those areas. Will Smallbone probably is that type of player. So I think I don't think necessarily 6 months to a year down the road. I think maybe Steve might be looking at him, certainly with the Greece game, for the reasons that you're saying, and saying there might be, he's pushing for inclusion in that starting lineup.
Yeah, I think the other thing about the Greece game is that they'll have Mikey Johnson in the squad for the second time, and they'll have seen what he can do, and he's not a player we have. There's nobody else like him in the squad at the moment. We haven't had anybody like him since McGeady, really. And away in Greece, if you need to change the game, or maybe you start with him in Greece?
I wouldn't start with him, just because I think possession is going to be at a premium with the weather being so hot. You're going to have to keep the ball, and I think Mikey Johnson, being a winger, he likes to get at people. He will lose the ball from time to time, and that's in his makeup. I like that about him.
This is you saying that.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I love that about him, so I wouldn't start him. And
what about the Wingers Union?
The Wingers Union, I'm out at years now. Look, I wouldn't start him, like I say, just because it's going to be hot. But I'd definitely take him off the bench. If the game is in the run and we need a goal, or it's in the balance, I'd definitely put him on. And he's a huge plus. He's been really good. The run he went on against Latvia, when he went in the box and took 2 or 3 on.
Well, the first time he got the ball under pressure last night, he was under pressure, and suddenly, like, there's a little postage stamp swivel of the hips and 3 players beaten. You're like, wow, give him the ball.
Yeah,
but then,
don't underestimate that, the ability. And I know it as a defender, you're under the cosh to be able to give the ball to somebody. He's going to keep. There's probably that type of play. He's going to keep the ball for you 5, 10, 15 seconds, not even necessarily to take it 30, 40 yards up the pitch, but just maintain possession for a period of time. You can actually recover and get a breather.
Is there a way that you can use that in the team and say, don't try and kill them every time you get it?
I think it's hard to get him in the setup of our team. So before last night, previously, we played with the back 5, narrow 3 in midfield, really 3 orthodox central midfielders we generally play in there. Whether it's the 3 who played last night, if Alan Brown comes in, he'd be the same. And we play with a front. We've really played with a front 2, a striking partnership. Now, if you're looking at Mikey Johnson saying, where does he fit into that? Does he fit into a narrow midfield 3 with the kind of qualities that we're talking about? No. Would you play him naturally as a front 2, as a central striker almost? Probably not. He's a little bit in between, isn't he? So it's hard to fit him in. If you're talking about a narrow front three, a midfield two, and a narrow front three, as we did against Laffa, brought him on. Yeah, absolutely, coming off the inside into the pockets. But I think he's hard to pigeonhole. He's that type of bit of free spirit.
So the role that Ogbene played last night, a version of that, except you're looking for him.
Last night because there was a huge amount of defensive responsibility on
not against France, against Greece
last night.
What I'm saying is against Greece.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go with the forward against Greece. So I'd love to. I think we need to go back to that central striking pair. For me, it's Evan Ferguson plus Chiadozi or plus Obafemi or plus Adamida in the game against Greece. I'd like to see us go back to our two central strikers.
What's your preferred two of those four names you just picked? What's the four, or what's your preferred two options?
Well, after Chiadozi's performance last night, and I think he's always done very well, Chiadozi, but he seemed to have fallen out of favour a little bit. Prior to the game against kind of Latvia, hadn't got a lot of game time under Stephen the previous 3 or 4 games.
I think he's better running onto the ball rather than when he's back the ball. But I think Obafemi and Ferguson, I think, are a very good pair. I like them two together. But I think Edith and Ferguson are a bit similar. I think obviously Ferguson's a better player than Edith, but I think they're too similar. I think it's one of them and somebody else.
Yeah, so that's the interesting argument for me. But I get a bit more like, if you're talking about an attacking threat, create more goal scoring opportunities. How we're going to more sustained. I think we get more sustained pressure by playing with a front two, because we can go back to front if we want a little bit earlier, maintain possession in the opposition half, and then people can go and join in, and we can get a bit of traction in the opposition half a little bit easier with that front two. Now you have to sacrifice one to centre midfield, but that's okay for me. We've got our wing backs in the system at the moment.
Well, Knight becomes a 10, or that's so you have Malumbi and Cullen, and that's fine. That should be fine in most cases. You're not up against a world class.
It depends the quality. Malumbi and Cullen last night in the midfield too wouldn't have been enough, because they got 20-25 yards of space either side of them. Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about in terms of little minor adjustments, modifications you can make. You could argue like Malumbi and Cullen as a 2, small ball playing as a 10 in behind the front two.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. These are the small things I'm sure the manager will be looking at, depending on the opposition and the challenges we're going to face.
If you do play small bone in the 10, he's somebody who puts the work rate in as well. He's not exactly a luxury player who'll just say, I'll work when I get on the ball. Like Kenny says, he'll come back and make it a 5 in the middle and work for you as well.
Yeah,
and then get up.
I think that the point of him being on the bench last night was to see that the level of work rate expected from any of those players in that midfield trio.
No better man to watch than Griezmann.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be, if he could turn into Griezmann, that would be good.
Wherever about his technical ability, Griezmann,
sensational. 40 odd goals at international level as well. It's like,
I've seen him on his backside a couple of times putting in tackles.
For an attack with Jason Malumbi at 50-50, I remember the first half, like full on, like studs up.
Wouldn't miss him on the pitch anyway, Griezmann. You certainly would miss him. Like the set pieces, that's another thing that kind of cropped up last night. I saw a couple of people commenting last night where I was watching it, saying Jimmy McGrath might have been a man to have in there for the set pieces. There was even that short corner at one point during the game where Josh Cullen tried to play it, and you're just thinking, put the ball in the box.
Yeah. I thought big to be fair, I thought the delivery was quite good. Josh Cullen off that right hand side, that outswing across, I thought he put it in some very good areas. The thing was, I was down the side of the pitch before the game, and it's amazing really. French team came out and it's landed the giants. Griezmann apart, unbelievable in terms of their height. Now we're talking about offering a threat at set pieces. I was more worried about them at set pieces. Like every one of their players 6 foot and over. Like Konate, absolute giants. Pavard, Giroud, Rabiot 6'3". Tushmani comes off the bench, absolutely phenomenal. So then up until the way. Collins header, we hadn't won one header in the box. They'd put their head on every corner we'd put into the box. So this is what you're up against. You talk about their technical ability, how good they are ball players, but like in terms of like physically, they're absolutely phenomenal machines. So yeah, I wouldn't be overly critical of kind of set pieces. I thought we actually put them into some good areas, but just very difficult to get the better of them in those situations until that Collins header.
Ferguson was a little bit, I don't want to be critical of the lad, he's brilliant, but probably a little bit leggy last night. He's played a lot of football as well, which you have to remember, and then there's the pressure of a fixture like that. Now, Evan Ferguson's played in some big games, but certainly wasn't the Evan Ferguson we've probably seen in recent weeks.
No, and look, playing in the Brighton team and playing into the Irish team, it's basically chalk and cheese, the way the build-up play will happen. He worked hard. He did everything we wanted from him last night. He did look like he could make something happen, but the one thing for me, physically, he looks like a man. He's only 18 years of age, but he looks like a man. It was either Upamecano or Konate he put on the backside once. He just said, I think he was getting a little bit annoyed because he wasn't getting the ball, so he just left a bit on him and put him on his backside. And I thought, I love that, especially out of a young lad being able to put himself about physically. And look, I'm very reluctant. I think he's going to go on and be an absolute Ireland legend. I really do. But I'm very reluctant to put too much more weight on his shoulders because he's on the front of the programme. We're all getting behind him. And we've seen Aaron Connolly, we've seen Troy Parra fall by the wayside with the pressure. So I'm very, very reluctant to put it on him. But he seems to just take to it like a duck to water. Every task that gets put in front of him, he's just knocking it out of the way.
It was a different task from last night. Didn't have the luxury of a partner alongside him.
I thought he did well under the circumstances.
I thought his hold-up play was great. A couple of times, kind of forced half under pressure. We popped the ball out to him. Upamecano, Konate breathing down his neck. Yeah, pushed his shoulder out like Keith was saying. Imposed himself, made the ball stick, bought us a little bit of time. Now, layoffs were good a couple of times to Jason. We won a few kind of free kicks and got a breather which we needed. So he did as best as he could last night in a difficult kind of situation which he found himself.
What did you make of the referee's performance last night? Like, he probably let the game flow quite a bit. There was a few tackles that maybe could have been yellow cards for both teams that weren't given.
There was a couple of very strange decisions. I thought Theo Hernandez 3 or 4 times just ran into the back of Ogbene. Could have been booked very, very easily.
That would have changed things a little bit.
Yeah, well, it would have put him on the back foot anyway. There was one where
Ger's not letting that one go. We was done. We was robbed.
We were robbed.
Yeah,
the one weird one, I remember, I think it was Mawani. We had the ball in the French box and Mawani knocks it past Malumbi. Yeah. And Mawani's breaking and Malumbi fouls him and he gives us a foul.
Yeah,
and I thought,
that's right. Yeah,
some of the decisions were really, really weird.
Josh Cullen got away with one early on, didn't he?
He did.
He took out Mawani on the halfway line when he was racing clear into where half the pitch. That could have been a straight yellow. So just kind of to level things up a little bit.
The shirt pulling was called every time except when we did it on Mbappe in the penalty area. So maybe we got away with one there a little bit.
Yeah, well, I in real time I thought Mbappe just threw himself to the ground, but I had the benefit of a replay, and you're thinking there's not a lot in the short pull. But when the short comes away from the body like that,
and he's been given them earlier,
option, lucky.
Brian says, I agree with Keith. Ogbene can't play with his back to goal. Ask the two lads what they make of Knight when he has the ball. He's not good enough in my opinion. Very good off the ball, but not near good enough on it. I think he's really good on it, but I think that last night was a giant step up in class from what he's used to, and so he needs to at least be playing championship football next season, and ideally he'd be playing at a higher level.
Yeah, Jason's an interesting one. I like Jason a lot, to be honest with you, but if we think he's going to be like a ball playing central midfield player, like a quarterback, you're mistaken. He's not going to do that. For me, Jason is a player who arrives onto the scene late, and you can see that in terms of the kind of third man runs which he makes from central midfield position. So he's not one who likes to come towards the ball and receive the ball and get things going from a deeper midfield position. If anything, I look at him, you want to keep him away from the ball, and when the ball goes from back to front, he's the one kind of joining in. We've seen that already. What was that away game like a couple of years ago that he done great a couple of times arriving into the box? He set up Ogbene for a goal. I think he set up 2 goals. So for me, that's his strengths. Arriving late, he's got an unbelievable engine in him, but he won't have an effect on the game. If you can't get the ball from back to front often enough and make the ball stick, you're not going to get him in the game, because he's the one really, when the centre forward makes the ball stick, he's the one arriving off that or for the next ball kind of in behind. So that's the type of player that he is. So I think you have to be realistic in terms of the qualities which he has. Saying last night, well, he didn't get on the ball, he didn't get us playing in that central midfield area. It's not really his game. For me, he's a kind of specific type of player in that central midfield area, but I like him.
Yeah, well, I think it's the problem that we've always had. Cullen, Knight, Malumbi, they're all the same. They all run around, they get you the ball, all different levels of talent, but pretty much same in what they do when they get you the ball. And like we say, we're putting a little bit of hope into Will Smallbone that he's the one that can play on the half turn, but yeah, there's a lack of creativity in the middle. But look, I don't take it away from the lads, because the attributes they have are some great attributes and they can work well within the team, but in terms of creating and playing football like a knife through butter, they don't really have that eye of the needle stuff.
So that's a good point. So Jer's talking about, we want to play a different way, we want to get away from traditionally blah blah or whatever, and that's all well and good, but we have to recognise the qualities, the strengths, Ger, the players that we have in the team. So you look at those centre midfielders, Jason Knight for me, arriving late onto things, Jason Malumbi as well, at his best when the ball goes beyond him, and again he's kind of joining in. Is Josh Cullen the type of disciplined central midfielder who's going to get on the ball, be that kind of quarterback and dominate games as a playmaker? Probably not. So we've got to recognise that, and we've got to mix mix our game up. As much as we want to get on the ball and play more of a possession-based game, we have to recognise the fact we want to get the ball from back to front as early as possible as well, and allow these players to join and get the likes of Mikey Johnson as well in possession, higher up the pitch. Will Smallbone, again, that is best in the opposition half in the little pockets. So we have to transition the ball from back to front as early as we can for me to get in that half the pitch, to see the strengths of those players, midfield players in particular, that we have. So it's that fine balance. I don't think we have to play a certain way. A possession-based game, yeah, to an extent, but I want possession in the opposition half and the last third of the pitch as often as possible. And the quicker we can get there, for me, the better. If that means we go back to front, all well and good. Remember the ball to Adamida second half, I think from down the left-hand side, 30-40 yard ball down the side and behind. He raced, Konate swiveled, played the ball on the inside, 2 passes, James McLean's driving into the box, almost shot on target. Absolutely nothing wrong with that either as well. So it's that kind of happy balance. Yes, we want to play more of a possession-based game, but understand our strengths as well and the individual attributes of the players that we have in the squad, and tailor a system of play or a style of play that we've been talking about which best suits those players. I don't think it's necessarily one way or the other.
Yeah, and the one thing as well, the French are coming, and the French are very, very good at pressing. You see, look, the way they scored the goal, it's a bad pass by Cullen, and Pavard puts it into the back of the net, but it's a really, really high press. So if we recognise that, and when we have it, we just chip it over the top of them, eventually that high press, they're going to just get a pain in their arse and say, I'm not pushing up the pitch because I'm just running towards my own goal. So you just get them set into a way, and then you start to earn the right to play. So it's not always long ball football.
Did we not chip it forward a little bit early on? Was there when
Chip okay. Golf. Talking golf here. Are we the masters? Like, heckin' chipping around the greens.
We did, didn't we? I felt a little bit like we were mixing it up.
We did mix it up, but again, I think there's a little bit of a diluted message that we're trying to play football. We're as good as anybody on the ball in Europe. These kind of quotes coming out, is that just in Cullen's head a little bit when he's on the edge of the 18-yard box? You know, for me, we're doing it's 0-0. We're just started the second half. We're in the red zone. Don't concede a goal the first 10 minutes of the second half.
And we actually started quite well. We put them under pressure. The mistakes were still happening. France had come out at the start of the second half and made a couple of mistakes. You're like, actually, this is going to fall into the same pattern as the first half. That's why it's a little bit heartbreaking. Yeah,
but again, every game has checkpoints. The first 20 minutes is a checkpoint. The first 10 minutes of the second half is a checkpoint. And you would have imagined that Deschamps gave the French a bit of an earful at half time. So you have to expect a bit of fire at the start of the second half. So that pass for me it's just really, really nonsensical. And again, I keep saying it's their right back. So just chip it into the space that Pavard should have been there, and just get us up the pitch and just play from there.
Adrian McGrath says Ida should have started and we should have finished with Ferguson maybe. Like, I disagree, but I do think that they were considering that. I think that if Ida had been fit, there's a good chance that, like, fully fit and had played and not come off injured for his last game, and Norwich hadn't pulled him out of the squad, and then he showed up anyway, which is kind of an interesting dynamic that's gone on at club level for him. It did sound like they were definitely considering that, and I don't know, I think that it was too big a risk.
I don't think it would have had a huge bearing on the game whether Adam had started or Nathan Ferguson.
I know, but the fans wanted Ferguson and he's on the front of the cover. Like, sometimes, the connection with the team is important.
Yeah, no, I think he will. I'm a big fan of Adam Ida. I think he will play a part going forward. It'd be interesting in terms of the kind of that kind of partnership. Keith was talking about it there. Is there a natural partnership between him and Evan Ferguson? That'd be interesting. I think potentially they could. I understand what you're saying, all right, but I think because Evan Ferguson is so good in terms of his ball retention, actually dropping into the pockets to receiving the ball, I think there's an argument there for Adam's pace in behind and kind of down the sides. And I think they're both intelligent players as well. I think potentially there's a partnership there. I look at Obafemi, I understand what you're saying, I'd agree with you, that lightning pace. For me, that was probably a reason I probably would have maybe started with him last night. Obafemi, quick transitions, counter-attack, his pace in behind, spins off the shoulder for centre half. You fancy your chances kind of 1v1. But I think in terms of his all-round game, his kind of ball retention, some of his decision-making, Obafemi, I'd question. I think he's still a little bit raw, he's still developing, whereas Adam Ida and Ferguson, although very young, for me, a lot more polished, more matured in terms of their positional sense and the decisions that they make. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Eden and Ferguson potentially going forward. I think there's a bit of joy in that.
They're all like 20, 22, like Knight turns
coming back to this.
Knight turned 22.
16, 17, yeah, maybe. Like you're struggling 20, 21, 23, 24, still, below 24.
No, 24, you're past it. You're old.
Over the hill, yeah.
Oh, dear. But I will say though, the French lads, I have to now look. Don't get me wrong. We've talked up the Irish performance here, absolutely, and rightly so. But I watched the French warm up, and I was close to Griezmann and Mbappe. Were doing a little bit of a passing drill in front of me on the side of the pitch, and I was looking at it before the game. I've never seen anything as sloppy in my life. Do you remember like your warm ups, going out for a warm up? You're warming up. Yeah, that's what you try.
That's a good point.
What are you doing? What are you doing, Kenny?
And I don't know how you warmed up, but I was very conscious of the fact I need to get my head. Yeah, physically, man. I need to get myself up to. I need to be able. The game's kicking off in 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
Kicking under the ground there. That was his legs.
I've never seen
like a swan.
Sloppy as Thames. They're kicking the ball. It was like park football. The two of them, you wouldn't have known, and you might think, when it matters, when the game starts, that's a whoosh. They're going to switch on, boom, get into the zone. But that's literally how they started the game.
Were you a good warm up man?
I did. That's what I'm saying. I did as I was told. I literally tried to warm up. Except that time, I remember being up in Tranmere once, Prenton Park in Tranmere, and warming up, hitting those long balls. Like 30 yards to a couple of the defenders, and the lads smashed the ball over my head, and I was running backwards, and somebody put an advertising board onto the pitch, went straight over it, like kind of legs in the air. Oh my God. So yeah, I was well warmed up after that.
And no one ever mentioned it.
Yeah, but it's amazing, isn't it? And you might think, you're reading too much into that, but I don't know. I looked at that last night, I thought, this is a bit, but that's how they started the game. And Mbappe, an absolute shadow. The two fullbacks, you mentioned Hernan. Yeah, and I think we got a bit of that 10-15 minutes into the game. A couple of sloppy passes, wasn't there? They kicked the ball out, of play a few times, ball bobbling over their feet, and things like that, because there would have been a bit of fear in the Irish players. I said it before the game, and that's not a bad thing. You know, I experienced a lot of that in my career, and it really kind of sharpens you up.
It's a great motivator.
Yeah, you have to be on you. And when you get a bit of a sense of that 10-15 minutes in, hold on, you're having a little bit of joy, they're getting a bit of slop, you're putting a bit of a press on, having a bit of joy, winning the ball, forcing a few mistakes. You sensed it with the crowd a little bit, a couple of sloppy passes. Well, hello, it might be our night, so we might be in the game. So I think the players kind of fed off that a little bit early in the game. But yeah, I'd have to say some of those French individual performances were absolutely like rotten.
My 14-year-old daughter went along. She'd never been to an Ireland game in her life, but she went along to watch Mbappe, and I met her after the game and said, "My God, wasn't he?"
Yeah, the expectation was up there.
Yeah, I was really disappointed. Like I got a sense of that. If you side to the pitch, when Mbappe came onto the pitch, the kids, you could hear, you get a sense, it's Mbappe. You don't get that with too many. Messi, probably Ronaldo is side. I can't think of too many other the last kind of 10, 15 years, can you? And you're getting a sense of that. I kind of sensed it a bit last night. This is interesting. But you get the kids, amazing. Here he is. He's in the flesh. We can actually see him. Yeah. This kind of God, you know what I mean? So I think there's a little bit of responsibility that kind of comes with it. Am I putting too much on his shoulders and that? You know what I mean?
No, I don't think did we not like Chidozie Egbene followed him whenever he was making a run, and Coleman followed him, and we did well on him.
Coleman was brilliant. By the way.
I think I only seen him open his legs probably 2 or 3 times, because you're looking out for it. You're thinking, I want to see how quick he is, because I'm up in the gods. I can see the whole length of the pitch. I want to see stride for stride how quick he is, and I think I only seen him open his legs once or twice in the whole game. It was really, really poor.
Just
but Coleman was excellent. Yeah, Coleman was. He took his the way he defended, and Kenny will know an awful lot better than me, but Coleman would take Mbappe's space, so he didn't let him get up ahead of speed. He would go and engage him, and when he comes and run, Collins would come across and help him, and he would engage, slow Mbappe down, and Collins would come in.
I think Coleman could play another 3 or 4 years as a third man and a 3 centre backs for somebody at some level of football if he wants to.
I think that's the way forward for him, and that'll be interesting if he comes in. You're talking about Nathan Collins going in, maybe centre for 3 there as well, and that leads into what you're saying about in terms of a kind of certain style of play, So if you're going to do that, you need players in key areas of the pitch. It's not all about central midfield. If you're going to play that way, you need ball players in central midfield. You need them across that back three line. Seamus can do that. He's an orthodox right back, and he's very comfortable driving forward. Nathan, we've seen that already. Darragh O'Shea left of three, very comfortable in terms of his passing. So yeah, that's interesting. That'll be something again, which I'm sure the manager will look at going forward. Seamus,
was it only when we
position of the team?
Was it only when we went 1-0 down that Egan started to drift forward a bit more? Because I wondered if that was a wrinkle that they're actually like advising. So obviously Collins comes out with the ball and drives forward and is an extra man in attack from time to time, and everybody understands that that's going to happen, and you filter back. That happened a bit in the first half. It obviously happened more after the goal was scored. But I couldn't tell from watching if it looked like Egan was drifting forward a bit more as well, and that extra body in midfield is a bit like for everybody going, who's picking this guy up? Well, that's not me because he's a centre back. So
I see, John, to be fair, Seamus, you can talk about in terms of stepping forward into kind of midfield and being an extra body. Nathan, yeah, absolutely. John Egan's the one for me. For me, he's more the sitter. He's the holder. He's the one who almost allows other players to step forward. He's the one who kind of sits and organises, probably the least efficient in terms of stepping into midfield and getting us playing, and that's okay for me. I think you need somebody who's actually happy to sit behind it and actually pull the strings, be the kind of puppeteer a little bit. Yeah, Nathan, off you go. Seamus, you can go and join him, but I'm staying here. Josh, you come in alongside me and just keep that kind of bit of defensive sleep, that bit of balance to us, even when we're kind of...
I'm talking about attacking here, and you're like, we have to make sure that we're defending. We're just whatever you do, don't attack too much.
Yeah, but I found that very early in international football in particular, because I was very limited in terms of ball playing ability. I couldn't have played in this Orders team. Yeah, I couldn't have. That was a fact. Very limited in terms of me ball playing. So for me, I very quickly understood when we were in possession of the football. Very quickly, I had to think. My defensive head had to kick in. So when we had the ball, I was always thinking, if we turn this ball over,
you're always thinking, what if?
Yeah, at any time, if we turn this ball over, are we in a decent defensive position? Can we get back
into it? Great crack at parties, are Kenny.
Them players are invaluable to have in your team.
I'm not. Yeah, we love Kenny.
Cheers, Keith. Good come back.
We do love Kenny. We do. Yeah. Keith, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us today. More from Keith, of course, on Football Kickoff this week. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. We're going to get the view from France in just a moment. We'd love your views. You can keep giving us your thoughts at offtheball AM on Twitter, or of course you can leave a comment youtube.com/offtheball. Now a reminder, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of Off the Ball. Braeburn Coffee is coming to an Apple Green near you. New Braeburn locations are popping up every month. Visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn coffee experience. Philippe Auclair is next. First, some Stephen Kenny post-match reaction. Take a look.
Stephen, we can obviously stress a lot of the positives that we saw here tonight in some of the performances. How do we now back this up? How do we now develop consistency for the games against the Netherlands and Greece when we'll need to take the points in the campaign?
Yeah, well, big challenges in June. Obviously, we've got to go to Greece in the middle of summer, in the middle of June, which is a challenge. So that's the next challenge, to back-to-back games, Greece and Gibraltar. So we'll just firmly move on and focus on, reflect on the performance and what we've learned from it over the next few days and prepare accordingly. And obviously we've extensive preparations in relation to, the 6-week gap between the end of the championship and the game against Greece. So obviously we have a 4-day training camp at Bristol City in a couple of weeks after the season ends, and we're going to Turkey for 9 days to prepare for Greece. And we want our preparations have to be exceptional, and we have to make sure we prepare really well for the game against Greece, which is a tough game, and Gibraltar here. So those 6 points in June is we've got to get ready. It's a tough game, Greece. We've got to get ready for that.
All right, we'll talk a bit more about that later on, but I'm delighted to say Philippe Auclair is with us to give us the thoughts from somebody with a French tinge. Philippe, how did France play last night?
I thought I wasn't that surprised. I wasn't surprised by the performance of the French team. I was perhaps pleasantly surprised by the performance of the Ireland team, which I wasn't perhaps expecting to put up such a fight. And I think, like most people in France, I was expecting something a bit more complicated than against the Dutch, strangely enough, if we didn't score early, as had been the case against Holland. And from a French perspective, first of all, I think you will have noticed that the reactions after the game, be it from Didier Deschamps or Benjamin Pavard or Adrien Rabiot and so forth were extremely complimentary, and they were complimentary in a way that was not condescending, by the way. It was not the tap of the shoulder, well done guys, good game, thank you very much. It was, no, that was really, really, really hard. Now, France does struggle against teams which know how to play with the low block, and which obviously Ireland did quite well. And, which is why when you look at the number of chances, if you say France shaded it on the night, I have to say there is a sense of relief. We're very happy to have Mike Maignan. I can confirm to you that's the case, who was absolutely immense and shows that we've got the successor for Hugo Lloris, but we were not in much doubt of that. But again, I think, yes, there's a sense in France of a certain kind of relief because it was a very, very tough game against a very tough opponent, which I think surprised many in the general public. I don't think it surprised people within the French staff. I don't think France turned up with the idea they were going to turn up and win. I know that they had prepared this game very, very thoroughly, that they had also done loads of video analysis with the players of the various strengths of the Irish team. Obviously, as you know, they had spent quite a bit of time studying this young gentleman, Mr. Ferguson's game. Kylian Mbappe had talked about it. I mean, so they arrived. The thing as well, I think, which perhaps should give people heart in Ireland, I'm sure everybody will have been given heart by this performance, is the fact that the French team that struggled against them, certainly at the end of the game, was not the French team that arrived with the idea it's going to be easy. Was not the French team that arrived with their mind already on something else, going back to their clubs, or we've done what mattered against the Dutch. No, they were France were really geared towards that game, and they struggled. And so, yes, relief, I think, and satisfaction, because 6 points after those two games, which, is not too bad a situation to be in before a long international break. What is a real international break, by the way? I've never understood why we called it international break, because we play internationals during the international break. But there you go.
An excellent philosophical point there, Philippe. I would expect nothing less, to be honest. But now that you point it out, it's obvious. Yeah, a good point. The relief at the end when the save gets made, like, it's a brilliant, brilliant save. But it's true that, like, they all went to celebrate with the keeper immediately afterwards to go, you basically won us the game.
Yes, absolutely, which is what Didier Deschamps said. An interesting expression, which when you look at it, you think, that doesn't mean anything. He said he didn't save 2 points, he gave us 3. Which, of course, is obvious, but you can see what he means there. Because, by the way, he also, this could have been an own goal by Jules Koundé, the header, just before, which was already a pretty decent save reaction. But that was, it was top drawer for the top corner, really, as they would say. And as what a debut, by the way, for Mike Maignan as a starter, stops a penalty against the Netherlands at the very end of the game, and really saves 2 points or gives 3 points to France in Ireland. That's not a bad start for him for his French career, even if he's had a few caps before. This is really now he's now in place, and for a very long time, I would imagine.
Were you surprised, Philippe, with Kylian Mbappe's performance? Remarkably quiet by his standards.
No, I to be honest, I was not that surprised. Again, he's somebody who thrives on space, and Ireland were very good at denying that. He perhaps didn't quite have the support on his natural flank. I don't think Théo Hernandez had a great game, to be absolutely honest, and I think he might not have known Ogbene's name before the game, but I think he will remember it now. And I think Kylian Mbappe, missed that. I also think that the changes which had done by Deschamps actually surprised a few people. You can see why you would decide to, in what you expect to be a more static game, where they're going to be, as I said, a low block and trying to go through the low block, to have somebody who has the aerial presence of Olivier Giroud. But that didn't quite work, and the quality of the crossing was not good. The way that the link-up play that we had seen against the Dutch between Griezmann and Mbappe was not quite happening, and Colomboigny, by the way, because of his movement, was not happening against Ireland. So all of this put together, and I think you can explain, and particularly the lack of space for him to exploit, that he's not Superman. He cannot produce performances like he did against the Dutch every single game. So I wasn't entirely surprised about that. I don't think that there was much in the French team's performance which was surprising, apart from, of course, Benjamin Pavard's goal, because that's not what I'd seen coming, to be honest. I don't think anybody had seen it coming, including himself. But thank you, Benjamin. You actually solved a big problem for us with another wonder goal.
He only seems to score incredible goals, Pavard, as well. Yeah. I mean, that was obviously, everybody remembers the one against Argentina at the World Cup, but the one against Sweden in the Nations League wasn't bad either. And this was quite spectacular. I think he will be what Didier Deschamps was very, very happy with. It's the finish. We know we've got a great shot on him, but it was the alertness of mind when he realized, okay, there's a chance to intercept that ball very high up the pitch, which honestly is normally not his game. He's more of a defensive fullback. He's a more traditional kind of fullback. And I think that there was actually quite a pleasure for many people to see him score that goal, because, as you know, he's had a pretty tough time, be it at club level or with the national team. He was certainly not a regular starter. So that's a satisfaction. But I think that Ireland actually showed a few areas in which France have got problems. And I think that the left flank, defensively, when you've got Kylian Mbappé, who is there, when you've got Theo Hernandez, who is a flying left back, there is, of course, you hope that Rabiot is going to do a bit of the work on the left-hand side, but that leaves us quite exposed. And actually, Ireland were quite good at exposing a few frailties, I would say, in the French setup, including, of course, on dead ball situations at the end, where honestly it was not very reassuring, was it?
I think maybe our assessment of it is like, we're obviously riven with all of the insecurities that we have as a football nation, and all the weight of history bears down on it. So we're half happy with what we did. We're also a little bit disappointed that the goal didn't go in at the end, and we're desperately seeking some kind of external validation here from you, Philippe. And you've given us it's like, yeah, actually, no, you guys weren't bad. So because we weren't sure if France were just stinking the joint out because they were terrible.
No.
Okay.
No.
Keep feeding us.
No, and I think the other thing is that the quality of Ireland's performance showed how awful the Dutch performance was in Paris as well. The Dutch didn't have any of the cohesion and cohesiveness of the Irish team. They didn't have any of the fire, which of course people commented upon, because, as you will know, we're only, especially when it comes to sport, stereotypes are never very far away. So even though people had been saying before the game, everybody who had been watching the Irish team over the recent past was saying, it's not quite the old kick and rush, long ball, blah, blah, it's different. People fell back on that by saying, oh, well, but with the Irish, there's going to be fire, it's going to be fantastic, spirit within the side, pushed by the wonderful public and so forth. So we had quite a bit of that. But I think Ireland earned quite a bit of respect from people who were expecting different things from them. And honestly, I think that looking at what we've seen in this group so far, it's very open, at least for second place. Wouldn't you agree?
We hope so. We like that's the thing. If Ireland can maintain this level of performance that we put in against France with the quality that we showed, then we should be able to cause difficulties for everybody. And we just haven't been great about following up a good performance against a big side with good performances against the medium sides and the weaker teams. And so that's our challenge.
Yes. Well, I can tell you that if you were to play the Netherlands tomorrow, which unfortunately you are not playing, you would give them a proper game. But it might not be Mr. Koeman who is in charge by the time, you meet up with the Dutch.
Were they that bad?
They were terrible, yeah. They were awful. They were really awful. I mean, their first half was absolutely an absolutely terrible performance. You didn't recognize. I mean, they had a few players missing, but even then they were not good at all. I have to say, I haven't watched enough of the Greek team to have to give you major insight into them. But I think you'll do all right against Gibraltar.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
As we will.
I mean, you say that, but we have had our trouble with them in the past. We scraped a 1-0 win against them, and it required a world-class Magnon-esque save to beat them 1-0. Go on, yeah, Kenny.
Sorry, Philippe, could I ask you just on a slightly different point? Is there any, seems an odd thing to say, any added pressure on the shoulders of Didier Deschamps going into this qualifying campaign off the back of the World Cup victory in 2018? Just the exit in England and in the manner against Switzerland, obviously the loss to Argentina. I know they made it to a World Cup final, but the pool of talent, Philippe, that's available to him. This is an outstanding French and has been for quite some time in terms of the quality which Deschamps has available to him. Is there amongst the French footballing public more of an expectation that he needs to go and win another major championship with a squad of this undoubted talent?
I think that the almost expectation is there, obviously, but I would say that first of all, that World Cup did a lot of good to Deschamps' credit in his home country. There were loads of people before the tournament who were expecting a difficult World Cup because of the injuries. I mean, there were 13 players missing at one point just before the tournament started. Also because of the quality of the performances, which hadn't been great. An absolutely catastrophic Nations League, as you will remember. And in fact, France surprised us all during the tournament by not just by the performances, but by the results, but also by the performances and the way they played. So in a way, going to the final was a little bit unexpected from a French perspective, I think. And then when it came to the qualifiers, when you score, I think it's the ideal start to the qualification campaign. 2 minutes in, an absolutely superb movement with Griezmann getting the ball, passing on the ball. I mean, there's a lovely interaction between Moani and Mbappe. Mbappe crosses back, Griezmann unbalanced, beautiful first-time shot in the corner after 2 minutes play against the Netherlands. So I can tell you that certainly lifted the pressure, and the performance against the Dutch lifted the pressure, and the performance against the Irish would also lift the pressure because it will have shown that France, when confronted with a very difficult, more difficult adversary, a team that plays the kind of football which usually creates problem for them because, again, the capacity to play with a low block, the organization and so forth, the denial of space, France actually managed to do that. And we were also expecting, well, what about France without Hugo Lloris, Steve Mandanda and Raphaël Varane? And the answer is that, well, we've got obviously a phenomenal keeper. We knew that, but we have confirmation. And the Upamecano Konate pairing looks actually very interesting, knowing that there are also quite a few people in the back. You know, William Saliba would probably have played. Who's a bit of a class player, and there are quite a few others who are missing. Presnel Kimpembe, who's played a number of times for France, was also missing. So it's looking good. And I would say that Didier Deschamps is today in a very, very good place, which for a French manager who's been in place for 10 plus years, that is quite an achievement.
Philippe, we've got to leave it there. Congratulations on your victory and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Philippe Auclair giving us his thoughts there and the French view, which is relatively positive about our performance last night. John Duggan is with us. John, good morning to you. You were at the game?
Ger Shane and Kenny, how are we all doing? Yeah, I was at the game. I was at the press conference afterwards. Stephen Kenny played a straight bat. Wasn't exaggerating what happened. Wasn't defensive. I thought that was quite refreshing from him, and just said it as it was. I thought a lot of positives to take. Thought we did well. I felt that the fans are really behind the team and are behind the team. I don't think it is in sync with the analysis I saw on Virgin, for example. And look, I love Brian Kerr and Damon Delaney. I think they're amazing analysts and they're friends of the show. But I think what I saw at the game was we played as well as we could. The issue obviously we have is that with only 4 wins in 22 competitive matches, we need to back it up now. We need to be able to develop consistency over the campaign, to be able to take points off the Greeks and the Dutch, and where the goal is going to come from in that regard. And that's the only maybe concern I would have. But really lion-hearted performances. Coleman, Malumbi I thought was really, really good. Ogbene. And there was a clear plan. And look, you know, France are a team that are a penalty shootout away from winning 2 World Cups in a row. So we have to remember that.
Good atmosphere on the ground, John?
Yeah, it was great. Really, really great from the get-go. They didn't play the put them under pressure stuff, which I thought was good, because I think that's 33 years ago. We need to move on. But it was an electric atmosphere. before the game, and then in the last 10 minutes, everybody was really, really behind the team. You just need a bit of consistency, a bit of momentum. I think like the small bone will be important now when we get into the other games in the group, but they died in their shield, as it were, if that's the phrase.
I feel like there's a bench there, like, you know, there's a little bit of strength and depth. I know we're saying that the Championship and League One players, but you still feel like there are some solid options in that Irish squad.
Yeah, it's a great leveller, international football, in a way, as you know yourself, Kenny. But it's just the goals. Where are the goals going to come from? Are you going to be able to score goals? And look, I just it's one of those things. We just got caught by a world class team for the goal. It was a mistake by Josh Cullen, and these things can happen. But can we get out of a situation where it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as has been the case? After the Armenia game in September, I said that the could had gone out of Irish football, in that I don't see any kind of hope or path where things could happen, whereas under Jack, under your teams, Kenny, there was always a sense that something could happen, and I felt that could return last night, which was really good.
That's positive. Yeah,
that's a fair synopsis, John. Yeah. But I think that's going to be the argument going forward. Where are the goals going to come from? So that's where the discussion is going to be, isn't it? Yeah. That's the manager's got to find the solution there, and is that going to come from literally just personnel alone, in terms of if Adam Ida had played in place of Evan Ferguson last night, would the goals have come? No, I don't think so. So that's where the discussion has to be a little bit more broader, and that's the challenge facing the players and the coaching staff in terms of the tactical setup of the team and personnel, all of those things, just in terms of finding the right balance. In relation to the challenge which is facing us, and every different challenge is different. France last night, Greece and Gibraltar all present different challenges.
Is there, like, John's talking about the code, right? For me, one of the codes is, and I keep going back to this obviously, but that the team is becoming more experienced collectively, that you're seeing players like Nathan Collins grow into international football, and that we haven't imposed our will on inferior opposition. We've allowed them to dictate possession, and actually, as they get more confident in what they're being asked to do, in what the game plan is, in their right to be playing international football, that they'll begin to assert more their influence on the game. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think that's partly the case, but I didn't think we didn't have enough possession, but we didn't create a lack of chances last night because there was a lack of.
I'm not talking about France. Sorry, I'm talking about the games like the Greece game and the Armenia game.
Yeah, generally speaking, that helps. But of course, what'll help with that more than anything else, winning games of football in terms of belief, collective belief.
That's catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So how are we going to get? So that's what I'm saying. That's the interesting thing. How are we going to get to that point where we're producing a level of consistency performance which actually translates into results? So that's the kind of the conversation we're having, and I'll have my opinion in terms of what I saw last night. I liked what I saw last night, but that can't be the way forward for me in terms of kind of our setup last night from a technical point of view. I think we'll have to tweak with that slightly for the Greece game and the Gibraltar game coming up in terms of creating more chances of scoring goals. So that's the interest. It hasn't got to be a certain way, like a kind of dogmatic, kind of real, kind of rigid, structured approach for every single game. You have to be kind of flexible and a little bit fluid in terms of how you approach each game.
I think we have flat flexibility within the personnel, and I think that there is depth now.
Well, I think we have. We've spoken about that, haven't we, in terms of the midfield, the balance of midfield. Small ball comes in, more of a creative edge. Mikey Johnson coming in up front, different type of player. The ball playing strengths of Seamus Coleman, Obama Diallo across the defensive line. Can they come in and give us like a different dynamic across, more of a ball playing defenders?
If there's an injury, we've got Callum O'Dowd on the left. We can now play Doherty on the left, no problems. We can play Coleman at right wing back. We can play Doherty at right wing back. We have Callum Robinson could come back in as
so they're the options. But ultimately, for each game, you've got to get it right. Got to make the right decisions in terms of personnel, in terms of tactical setup. For me, that's the core. That's the core of it. That's what's kind of driving it. They're the kind of fundamentals, the kind of building blocks that I'm talking about.
Okay, John. Antonio Conte is gone. We knew that was going to happen. Nagelsmann, they're speaking to. Obviously, he's available now because the first domino to fall was him being sacked by Bayern and Tuchel straight in. So Tuchel, obviously,
good appointment.
Who Tuchel to Bayern or Nagelsmann? Tuchel's going to
great appointment.
Will Tuchel be the first short-term manager to win 2 Champions Leagues?
Yeah.
Like that would be. And then he should just drop the mic and go, look, I've seen how this finishes.
Retire.
Handshakes all round.
Yeah.
Look, it could be Nagelsmann, De Zerbi, Brendan Rodgers, Arne Slot, Luis Enrique. It doesn't matter who it's going to be, because the regime there is there 22 years, and they're brilliant business people. Daniel Levy, Joe Lewis, amazing business people, amazing stadium. Don't know how to run the football product, in my opinion. Fantastic business people, and look, the club has gone through a period under Pochettino where it's been at its most successful since the 60s, so you could argue in favour of them in that regard. But this will be the 12th permanent manager, one trophy in 22 years, one League Cup to show for their efforts, and it's not good enough. And like, as long as Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis are running the football product in the way they have, with poor recruitment and a revolving door of managers, nothing's going to change.
But so you'd lay all of that at Levy's door. So in terms of recruitment, in terms of the Patricio who's been brought in, and surely Daniel, you're not suggesting Daniel Levy is responsible for the recruitment of all the players that have come in.
Well, he's the chairman, so he doesn't pick
he's not picking the individual players.
18 months where I know they were building the stadium, and there's 18 months when Pochettino was pleading and begging for investment when they didn't do that, and then they sacked him 4 months after he brought a club like Tottenham to the Champions League final.
So since Pochettino was gone, where has been the fault on Levy? Are you talking about money available, John?
I think the money's been spent. Like, they spent a lot of money with Charleston.
So he has given managers
he has,
money.
and like Antonio,
where's the fault then?
Like Levy didn't put out the team against Sheffield United in the FA Cup that were disastrous.
This is my point.
So I think there's lots of things like Conte has to blame, and I think Conte's style may have graded it on the players. But like, the players need to take responsibility as well. I think there's a load of things, but ultimately it seems that the recruitment, or like the last good guy that they seem to have in terms of recruitment, was Paul Mitchell, who worked with Pochettino, and they were able to get really good signings into the club. Not every signing you get is going to work, but I'm just feeling it's a revolving door of managers. And whatever about Jose and Conte maybe being yesterday's men in football, they're proven winners of trophies, and they couldn't make it work at Spurs. So I don't think going back to Pochettino is the answer. But look, maybe they'll get investment from Qatar. Maybe they'll get investment now to build up the wage structure to be the equivalent of other clubs. Because otherwise, you're a 6th or 7th place team. And I think like things like the FA Cup, the League Cup, these things actually now matter. You saw for Manchester United how much it mattered for them, even winning the League Cup. So, like, to go out against Sheffield United was not on the chairman's on the chairman's watch, but like, ultimately, he's 22 years of one trophy. When you look at how successful Arsenal have been this season, Arsenal were 8th 2 seasons in a row. We were way ahead of Arsenal 2 to 3 years ago. Now we're way behind them. And how has that happened?
Yeah, but Arsenal haven't gone about it and gone and got the elite players in and paid the best wages in the world. They've gone about it a different way. So I think it's remarkable what Arsenal have done. Yeah, I'm just interested in the Levy one. I take your point in terms of Pochettino. There's an argument there that he should have been back. The money should have been found when they were playing at the level where they'd taken to that kind of next level. But kind of since then, in terms of the managers that you've come in, you wouldn't say as if he hasn't gone and got some of the, should have gone and got a top manager. When you talk the likes of Mourinho in particular, and even Conte, who's come in, I think a fair amount of chunk of money has become available in relation to where Spurs are. John, I don't think any Spurs supporters expecting Spurs paying 300 grand a week for the top elite players to come in, and massive signing on fees. I'm not sure if you can put that at Levy's door. Are you saying that he needs to go and find? They need to go and find that money. I think
they need to find investment, but I think they also need to be able to find, if you don't have the wage structure, you need to be able to find a De Zerbi type of figure and people around them in the recruitment area. Like the CEO of Brighton's a Spurs fan. You know, like Brighton are the example of a club that if you had that model a little bit above that at Tottenham level, then you could really punch above the weight. Because I'm not seeing Arsenal, I'm not seeing, when you're talking about Arsenal Football Club, about 11, oh my God, that's one of the best players in the world. You're seeing a massive collective, Jesus, Zinchenko, Partey, Xhaka, who's now a revelation, like Aaron Ramsdale, these types of players. So if Arteta and Arsenal can do it, why can't Spurs do it?
All right. We'll come back to this because obviously they will appoint somebody, or maybe they won't. Maybe there won't be anybody appointed until the summertime, and this Nagelsmann stuff is just to keep the pot boiling and say, oh look, we're doing our
Stellini's there now until the end of the season, so
yeah.
That's a strange one. Conte's number 2 staying on.
Do you think? Well, because he obviously did quite well. He beat Chelsea, beat City. You know, do you think this is true, or if they decide Nagelsmann's the man, they'll just get him in?
No, I think they'll probably have a summer appointment.
All right.
Whoever it's going to be.
John, good stuff. More of that, of course, on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk. It is 3 minutes past 9 this morning. OTB AM is live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave of your money back. Neon Night edition available now. Now, I'm delighted to say Cora Staunton is with us, who is now a former AFLW player. Cora, good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, boys. How are things? I'm good.
How is retirement sitting with you now that it's been made public?
Yeah, it's fine. I suppose as you well know now, I made the announcement, or not the announcement yesterday, but I just made the decision before I left Australia at Christmas time. So yeah, it's kind of set well with me for a while now. So yeah, I'm probably just a little bit overwhelmed by all of the messages and calls and, you know, social media messages that I've kind of got over the last kind of 24 hours. But yeah, no, it's sitting well with me, surely. As I said, I had my mind made up quite a long time ago, so I've had time to process it.
Did you know this was going to be your last season heading into it?
No, I didn't know heading into it. I suppose when the season was over, yeah, I kind of knew by that. I suppose our club over there is just going in a little bit of a different direction. We did an appointment of a new coach last year, which was obviously a little bit different. I had the same coach for the 5 years previous to that. Yeah, and just, yeah, the club are really gone back into a rebuilding phase and, you know, bringing in a lot of youth and stuff like that. So, you know, while they wanted me to stay on and probably, you know, help nurture that youth, I knew probably the chances of, you know, a premiership title were probably a little bit further away. And, you know, I wasn't going to be in that long-term window to try and win it. So yeah, I felt I kind of had give everything at that stage, and yeah, I was just happy you know, to make my decision and not probably have to come home at Christmas time and being worried about having to get back training again in January. So yeah, that element of it has certainly been nice, where I'm not out having to train and push myself really hard, you know, 5, 6, 7 nights a week.
Was there ever any thoughts about joining another team who might be potential contenders?
I suppose I had contact from 1 or 2 teams, surely, that obviously had got wind. You know, most people didn't know that I was retiring, but I obviously had got wind, however they did. So I did have a couple of conversations, you know, maybe 5, 6 weeks ago with them. But yeah, I'm very much, I'm very loyal to wherever I've come from. You know, obviously Mayo, Carnacon, you know, and the Giants was like that as well. You know, I knew if I was going to go to another club, it was probably just going to be for probably another year, and you know, unless, you know, I knew I was probably going to go and you know get the best out of myself, I probably just wanted to stay one club player, which, you know, I'm glad I did.
It allows you time now, Cora, I guess, to reflect on the 5 years and the achievements you've had down in Australia. And like when you went over in 2018, you were the first. Like, there's a lot of Irish players, female players over there now, which is amazing to see. But you were the leader in that regard. So was that a pressure that you sat lightly with, that you took, that you were able to kind of deal with, I guess, because when you're the first one in anything, it's difficult.
Was at the time, you know, life was very hectic at the time. I suppose I went straight over. We had competed in an All-Ireland final with Mayo, lost that to Dublin, and then we went on a really good club run. I went out to Australia in the middle of the club run for a trial, and then we went on to win the Club All-Ireland that year, and, you know, I flew to Australia 2 days after that, so it was very much a whirlwind. You know, I didn't really have time to think about it because all my energies were in either Mayo or Carnacon. And I suppose, yeah, when I went out there the first month, yeah, certainly I was like, yeah, this is going to be tough. Like, I'm going to have to give it my all. And yeah, I suppose then over the last number of years, and particularly probably in the last 2 years, the amount of attention it's got, you know, on TV here. And I suppose the first year I went out there, I had a documentary crew follow me, and that was showed. And I suppose the interest kind of grew from there. The girls could see, you know, what life was really like out there. And obviously it was being shown on TV over here. So yeah, it's just crazy. Even this morning reading, I think there's 3 Tipperary girls that have just 2 gone to Geelong and 1 gone to North Melbourne. The numbers are just going to be huge now. You know, I'd imagine by the end of the draft day, which is the 4th of April, that the numbers will be certainly in the 30 plus girls that will play in the league next year. And that being said, then, you know, in the club competition over there, there's girls moving over there to try and get an opportunity. I think in the VFL over there, there's probably about 15 girls playing it. So yeah, it's huge. And I suppose, yeah, from when I was there the first year to see that the amount of numbers now that are coming out and the amount of contact I get from girls, from their parents, you know, as young as kind of 16, 17, wanting to know how can they, you know, basically get there. What do they need to do when they're, you know, the draft age of 18 or when they're finished school? How can they get out there? And, you know, it was only last week I met with a mom and her daughter, and you know, we spoke through what she might need to do to get there.
If there was any doubt on how physical the sport is down in Australia, like we've seen you with a few shiners over the years, no doubt. And I think I remember you saying in one of your columns, or maybe it was on air with ourselves on a Saturday panel at one stage, that you've been told that you play your best footy when you're pissed off, but I'm sure that's something that you kind of channel into such a physical sport. You kind of need to be up and on edge for every single game.
Yeah, it is a very physical sport, and I suppose, I suppose that's, people do. It's only when you try and reflect and people ask, how are you motivated? And I suppose that when I look back, that's probably the most way I've been motivated throughout my career is, when people doubt you and, probably say that you're not up to something. And I suppose that came with me in my leg break a couple of years ago. People, doubted at 37 and a quadruple leg break that you were probably, going to retire and not come back to the sport. And that kind of people pissed me off around that, and that was really my motivation, just to come back and show them anything's possible. And I was lucky enough, I came back from that injury very well, and played 3 seasons after that. So you need to be really up and about. It is a very physically demanding game. I often do watch the rugby players here and see on how they get up on a Sunday morning or a Monday morning after a big game, and that's how you kind of feel. And again, it's all position based over there. There's some positions there that you're probably not going to get as hard hitting, but there's certain positions. And when I was there, I loved the physicality. Probably spend more time getting scans and stuff. Come home probably with 5 or 6 different breaks. But the body is still good and it held up for the time that I was out there.
It's amazing, like a quadruple leg break is.
I know. You did a piece with Andy Lee a couple of years ago where you kind of went into detail on it. It's just phenomenal. What was it that pissed you off that people were saying that helped to drive the motivation?
Yeah, I suppose it was just a couple of people. I suppose this was very early days. I was probably in hospital at the time, and kind of my first couple of days back at the club. So it would have been probably, I'd say maybe I haven't even 2 weeks done at this stage, and people were like, oh no, they'd obviously all seen the x-rays and stuff, and the x-ray I think filtered around the whole medical team in both the men's and women's side of the club, and they were like, no, sports people don't come back from this. It's very rare, and if they do, they're young. I suppose, just a couple of comments, from high up people in the Giants at the time. They know who they are because I've spoken to them since, and they were very much like, oh no, just look after your health, and it's going to be very difficult to come back from this, and it's okay if you don't, and it's okay if you retire, and just comments, small little comments, and at times the comments I was probably making them more out of them than not. I slagged my coach, who was my coach there for a long time. He made a comment on the way home after a 2-week appointment that I had after getting my stitches out that, I was just saying thanks, for organising the surgeon and how good he was. And he was like, we'll see how good he was, in October, November. And, that was probably 7-8 months post-surgery. And I was like, I know how good he was, I'll be back. So it was that kind of just small things I needed to take. I needed to have that little bit of motivation and drive, because when you're in rehab on your own 6 times a week, 4 or 5 hours a day, you need something to, push you, especially when the days are hard and they're challenging. And, the days that I was probably learning how to walk again and learning how to hop or whatever it might be, they're challenging, and you need some little bit of extra driver in you. And I suppose, I probably took them from them comments.
Are you going to take up golf to fulfill what are you going to do now to match that?
I've never actually played golf, bar a tiny bit of pitch and putt. And if you see me playing that, I'm quite bad at it. I'm not a patient person at all, so I can't imagine the game of golf would suit me. I don't know. I'll tip away playing a bit of club football. Obviously I'm involved with Galway Camogie at the moment, and I suppose that's an area I went into, in December time. I got a phone call from Cathal Murray wondering would I come in, and I met him, and I just didn't know if that was something. I was like, I don't really know anything about Camogie. I said, I don't know any of your players or anything like that. And he was like, no, come in and see. And, I've been in there for the last kind of 3.5 months, and I'm absolutely loving it. The longer I'm there, the more I'm enjoying it. I'm working with, 35 girls, and it's a great experience. I'm doing everything in Anthem with them, from a little bit of coaching up with our forward group, from individual work with the team, to supporting Cathal and the rest of the backroom team. So I'm really enjoying that, buzz. And, we were down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Sunday, and we had to beat Cork to get into a league final. And I'm the the one that's getting really into it, jumping up and down and on the sideline, when we get our 1-point victory. So I feel that's replacing it a little bit at the moment. But I suppose club football will replace it for now. But I am really enjoying not having to, do them the extra training sessions. I was never the most aerobically built person, so I had to train hard to keep fit all the time. And I suppose I'm not missing that, having to, push myself maybe at 8 or 9 o'clock at night to go out and do a running program and do that 5 or 6 times a week. So, but I'm certainly training in a way. I don't have to go to that really dark place when you train that you have to go to.
And is the door closed on Intercounty?
Oh yeah, that door closed long ago. God, I'm retired from Intercounty now. Probably I've gone into 5 or 6 seasons at this stage. Yeah, no, as I said, I play club football, and I haven't really. While I've played a little bit with them over the past few years, I haven't given enough to them because I've obviously been away. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to playing a little bit of that. And as I said, doing work with Gog Camogie. I'm training with them. In every training session with them 3 or 4 times in the week. So yeah, I'm kept busy with that, and obviously doing the punditry work as well. So there's other bits coming down the line, but yeah, between AFL, Gaelic football, and everything, I suppose I've my body and my mind has probably given a lot to it over the last 2 or 3 decades. And geez, I don't want to say 3 decades, but probably 3 decades at this stage.
Was the plan always to be in Australia for that duration of time, Cora? Like, would you describe yourself as a home bird? Did you like coming home? Did you miss Ireland, or were you quite happy down there?
Oh, you know what? It was so funny, Shane. Every time I went out, so every year I went out. When I went out first, I thought I was only going for 1 season, but every year I went out, I found it really hard to leave home. And then every time I had to come home, or come back for club season, or the season was done down there, I found it very hard to leave Australia. So I had mixed emotions going, either direction. No, I'll certainly. I'm probably more of a home bird. I always see myself settling home, but that's not to say, I will take a couple of visits. I'll try and get out to Australia at least once every year, if not 18 months. Certainly, I have a lot of good friends out there. I really love the game. Hoping maybe to do a little bit with the AFL down the line as well. So. It is a sport. I still watch it now. The men's season just started 2 weeks ago, and yeah, I'm the one up in the middle of the night watching, the Giants play or whatever, and other games, that the Irish guys are involved. I watched Conor McKinnon in his first 2 games at Brisbane 9. So, Dara Joyce, obviously debuted for them at the weekend. So I'm still really interested in the game and how it works and stuff. And, I have massive contacts over there. So, yeah, I'll be based at home, but certainly I like to get out over and back to Australia at least once a year if I can. I'm
sure you're back in perfect time to see Mayo win the All-Ireland this year. It's worked out well.
Yeah, I'm back in proper time for Mayo to win the All-Ireland now. If I could get out to see the Ireland women in the World Cup, that's my only regret that I retired probably a year too soon. The Irish women played their first game in a stadium that's walking distance from where we train in Sydney Olympic Park. So I've been in the stadium many times. So yeah, that's probably the only disappointment that if I could have got out to watch them certainly play, because as I said, when the Irish come out there, I've watched the Irish rugby sevens numerous times when they've been out there. It's so good, and to see Ireland women against Australia in a packed ANZ, as it used to be known, stadium that can hold up to 90,000. It's going to be something. But yeah, as I said, I hope to get back and over to Australia as often as I can.
Cora, it's an absolutely incredible Irish sporting life. Congratulations on putting together multiple brilliant careers that would have been Hall of Fame in one sport, let alone 2 or even 3 if you include the club. So congratulations. Brilliant having you on this morning, and thanks a million for joining us.
No bother, Ger. Thanks for having me on.
It's the absolute legend Cora Staunton there, who's retired from the AFLW. OTB AM live with Gillette Labs. Got the ultimate shave or your money back Neon Night edition available now. You're about the same age. Kenny, why aren't you still playing?
I really enjoyed the interview, actually, to be honest with you. I enjoyed how supportive she was of the other Irish athletes. She referenced a couple of the male players still over in Australia, and even the Irish women's team there. That's nice to see. I think that's good. Not all about herself, but bigger picture and other Irish athletes in Irish sports. So yeah, amazing achievement. I just know of her from a distance, and yeah, it'd be interesting. How do you fill that void? Different for everybody.
It is.
Ger. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Obviously, he's still playing a bit of club football, Galway, come out, a bit of media, all of that kind of stuff. But it's amazing for other people. It's like, can't wait to get away. No players.
That was you. Yeah. No 5-a-side. Not playing any 5-a-side.
No, that's not me. I'm talking about nothing. I'm training. I'm talking about training. I'm talking a serious conversation. We're going to make it a bit of a joke now. We want to make it into a bit of a joke. Is that where you want to go?
All right.
I'd love to play 5-a-side with Kenny, actually. It's on my bucket
The
list.
level, Cora, even her training there, she strikes with that type of person, high
Focused.
intensity. I know the kind of sport she's in, you can't get away from that, you know what I mean?
All right,
but it's difficult, the body. Oh, you don't want to talk. Why didn't you
No,
just
we
say
gotta
you don't
go,
want
we
to talk
gotta go,
about
we
it
gotta
then?
go. It was
We
just-
won't.
Briefly, it was brief.
Oh,
you know.
brief. You
Yeah.
wanted a brief, did you, Roy? I didn't do brief. Sorry about that.
Kenny, thanks very much for being with us today.
Oh, I'm gone.
Yeah,
Kicked out now.
Here's some highlights on the OTB Podcast Network for you today. The Football Pod, Koi Gig, the latest episode, and the Irish Player Reaction Pod to last night as well. You can get them all wherever you get your podcast, but the best place, of course, is the Off the Ball app. Here's more from Stephen Kenny reacting to the result. We're back after these. Cheers.
Stephen, France were a penalty shootout away from back-to-back World Cups, so do you feel you deserve something more from the game? Your general thoughts on Sydney?
I think, I do think France are the best team in the world, in my opinion overall, and they lost the World Cup on penalties, but for us to win a game against the best, a team of that magnitude, we have to create a game, a few chances. We have to carry as much of a threat as we can ourselves, but we have to create, and that doesn't mean by just defending. That means by trying to control aspects of the game in the manner that we can, and having a cutting edge in our play to create chances. We would have liked more of a cutting edge in our attack and play in the first half than we had, but that's not easy. We've watched France's last 20 games. We've never seen Kylian Mbappe, who I voted for as the best player in the world, have such a quiet night. I've never seen it.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
Off the ball. I'm so intrigued by the relegation battle at the moment. 12th place Crystal Palace are 4 points ahead of 20th place. I want, Joe, a last day of the season. I know you're not as interested in things that aren't at top level, but tell me this wouldn't be amazing. Last day of the season, no team is relegated and 9 teams could go down.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, it's difficult enough for us to sift through some of our live comments and bring you a sample of what people have been saying to us this morning about the non-football story of the last 24 hours. So by now, many of you will have seen that Kellie Harrington did an interview yesterday with Shane as part of a press call for a campaign. It's fair to say it's gone viral and there's been a big response. We're trying to sift through that response and talk to you about it. I do want to read the statement that Kellie Harrington issued late last night. I don't know what time exactly it was issued at, and I have some screen grabs here of it, so hopefully I've got the whole thing. It says, last October I reposted a tweet of a video from a journalist whom I did not know at the time, detailing the story of a young girl in France who was kidnapped and murdered. Moved by the horrific circumstance of this story, I reposted a video of this journalist together with a copy of a quote. My thoughts in that moment were of that young girl and not any political opinion. This was 11:07 last night. Having realised the significance of my tweet and the hurt caused to a number of people, I immediately deleted the tweet. I engaged privately with a number of people who were hurt by my tweet and apologised to them. As a sporting role model, I am aware that I need to be mindful of what I do and say. I reacted with my emotions and without the facts. How this came across is not reflective of me as a person or my thoughts. I did an interview today during which I was caught off guard. I was not prepared for a question unrelated to sport, and my response to the question asked was not definitive. I do not want to engage in politically sensitive matters. What I want to make clear is throughout my life both in boxing and outside boxing, I've been lucky enough to have had many multicultural influences, and this continues to shape me to this day. This is something that shapes me as the person I am today, and something I'm very grateful for. The people closest to me will attest to this. Since that interview, I have seen some comments that I feel I should address and make my feelings and thoughts clear. As a sportswoman, I'm proud to say I am all about community, inclusion and diversity. So, do we want to just...
Yeah, that was what the reaction was quite insane. I don't know if we expected it to go like that. And look, those interviews are difficult at the best of times. And look, I've seen you see some comments. And look, I did turn the notifications on your phone off, of course, when something like that happens. But like, you're seeing some comments like, oh, you're asking a sports person a political question, but my take, and some people will agree, some people won't, is that if a sports person puts up a post on social media, then that is up for questioning. And I guess the purpose of my question was to see where she stood on it now, and that was it. And she had an opportunity at that point to either explain her views or to retract them, or somewhere in the middle. I didn't know or care what direction it was going to head in from there. But things certainly got a little tense, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, so we're going to play you the full interview now, and we might have a quick chat off the back of it. So there's about 12 minutes of the interview. Most of you will have seen the full interview, which was on our YouTube from yesterday afternoon. We put a shorter bit up on Twitter, but here is the full interview. She was obviously an ambassador for Spar. I think that has become clear in the last 24 hours or so. So here's the interview. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Okay, well, the Spar ambassador and Olympic gold medalist Kellie Harrington has been speaking at the launch of the €60,000 Spar 60th Community Fund. Spar retailers are proud to have served their communities across Ireland for the past 60 years, and this new initiative will see Spar invest €60,000 back into local communities to drive positive change and impact. Through the Spar 60th Community Fund, 6 local community clubs, groups or programmes will be rewarded with €10,000 each, along with the chance to meet Olympic champion Kellie Harrington and take her on in a fun series of challenges. For more information and to be in with a chance to win, visit www.spar.ie. Kellie Harrington joins us on the line now this morning as well. Kellie, good morning. How are things?
How's it going? All good. How are you?
Keeping well. Thanks for joining us. I guess boxing is at the forefront of a lot of our conversations at the moment. There's plenty of action ongoing. There's plenty of action upcoming. A big fight in the Three Arena in Dublin coming up in May as well with Katie Taylor. It kind of brings up the question. I know that the question of professionalism with yourself is often mooted. Do you have any regrets? Are you happy with the decision to stay in the amateur game, or how do you sit with the whole situation at the moment?
No regrets, absolutely none, and I'm still the same. I wouldn't go professional if I was paid. I've no interest in it whatsoever. I think it's great. Like, I like watching. Well, actually, I don't really follow it either a whole lot, but I like watching. I'm a bandwagoner. When the big fights are on, I watch the big fights, and that's enough for me. That's enough for me. I don't need to be in there.
You've always said that, and I think you've been very steadfast in those beliefs. Like you've said, I remember the last time you were on, I think you were saying, I want to have a bit of a life, and at mid-30s or whatever age you decide to hang up the gloves, that would be you done and dusted. So I guess at least you have the focus, and you've always known kind of, I guess, what way you wanted your career to pan out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people do be saying to me, like, oh, what about then after the Olympics? Would you do 2 years and you could become a world champion in professional boxing within a year or two? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, and like for 10 seconds, be like, oh my God, that good. And then I'm like, no way. No, I've put enough in, like, over the years now. Like, I'm half my life boxing basically, and so that means I'm half my life getting punched in the head. So I've enough of that. I will have had enough of it after the Olympics if I qualify for the Olympics, and that's enough to do me.
100%. Well, listen, we wish you all the best in that qualification process. The big questions around Olympics and boxing, the Olympics generally, Kellie, of the last while have been whether or not even by 2028 we'll have boxing as part of the Olympic Games. So it's not currently on the initial programme for Los Angeles in 5 years' time. So boxing and lightweight rowing as well, I mean, two sports which we happen to excel at, ruled out of the LA Games. What do you make of all this? Because I guess from our perspective, from a greedy Irish perspective, it's bad news.
Well, it's not really greedy. It's two sports that were absolutely, like, brilliant at, so it's not greedy. If you take something away, like, that would be absolutely crazy. So everyone's right to be up in arms over it, but for me personally, I haven't really even thought about it because I'm too busy thinking about myself, and I know that's selfish, but that's what you got to do to get to where you want to be, While I'm sitting here, I have absolutely no idea about what's going on in the background, but in my head, I'm like, the Olympics will be in LA in 2028. I can't see them, not the Olympics, boxing. I can't see them taking boxing out of the Olympics. Like, something will happen, something will change, and it will be a good change, hopefully. And boxing will be in LA in 2028, and all those people who are coming through behind me will get that chance to try and qualify to represent our beautiful nation in LA in 2028.
It's fascinating because different sports people in different sports as well, either take a front foot in when it comes to issues like that. Rory McIlroy being one example of someone who's spoken up on the Liv Tour situation. But then, just as respectably, you have golfers who take a back seat and just want to concentrate on the sport itself. Are you more of that frame of mind that you just want to concentrate on yourself, the ring, and the politics and everything else outside of it is just irrelevant?
Well, kind of, for me, it is irrelevant, because no matter what I say or no matter what I do, like, it will fall on deaf ears, and it is out of my control. So I'm in the game long enough now, and I'm old enough now to understand that I can only control what I can control, and all of that is out of my control. So there's no point in me stressing over that and causing myself like stress and upset and to be anxious and worried, which may impact my training regime and my performances when I'll have absolutely zero say.
I watched you've probably seen it, the brilliant film North Circular recently enough, which kind of tells the whole story of Portland Row and that part of the city and the beautiful stories that emanate from that part of the city as well. I don't know if you've managed to see it. I know your homecoming parade, for example, formed a fairly crucial part of the film towards the back end. Have you managed to watch it?
I haven't had time to get in to see it, but me, Matt and Dad were in and they seen it and they said it was absolutely amazing. They loved it now. They thought it was really great. And I've heard so many good things from people who have been there to see it, and it's amazing. Like, it just shows from the top end to the bottom end, like a really great journey, and I believe it's great, and hopefully I will get to see it.
Do you follow stories like that of Barry Keoghan, for example, who, I mean, I guess, and that was the story that we all followed around the Oscars time, how he can come from essentially nothing to being super famous and super talented above all else at what he does?
Yeah, well, it's not that I follow a story or anything. I know Barry personally, so I know what, like, I know what he comes from, where he comes from, and I'm just proud of him as a person, and as someone who has got up off the backside and who has chased their dream, who has wanted to, become something for themselves. And I admire that. And he is an inspiration to not just his community, because you often hear when people do well in their communities and saying they're an inspiration to their community, they're an inspiration to this and that. He's an inspiration to absolutely everybody, not just his community, to everybody in Ireland and all over the world.
Will you? I touched on the fight earlier, the Katie Taylor fight that's happening next month with Chantal Cameron. But will you watch? Is that a fight you'll watch? Do you pay close attention to the game and to Katie's progression at the moment?
Yeah, I've watched all Katie's fights. She's fantastic, and I've watched them all. And I will watch this one as well. I think it'll be a great fight. But personally, I think Katie has way too much. She's too much in the bag. Like, she has a great selection of shots, and her speed will be, I think speed and movement is going to be the key in this fight for her, and she has like bundles of all of that.
You're talking there, Kellie, as well. We're kind of discussing the idea of role models, and I know this is probably an area that you've been thrust into because of your talent and your success. And given that, and given all of the diversity as well in the North inner city now, is something that's cropped up in recent years as well. I know you've had a number of interactions on social media and on Twitter that have suggested you've strongly held views on immigration. Are those opinions you still feel strongly about?
I don't actually. I switched off there when you said diversity in the inner city. There's diversity all over Dublin, so I did switch off. So I don't actually know what the rest of the question was there. Sorry.
No, just talking about. I know you had a couple of interactions on social media, on Twitter in October, where we're talking about anti-immigration, and there was a quote tweet from a GB News tweet where there were links between violence and immigration and migrants. And I know on social media, I guess, in your position as a role model, those comments carry weight. So I was just wondering if you have still the same held views on immigration.
So I feel right now at the moment that you're trying to hang me out to dry. So for that, I'll say next question.
Well, not at all. The discussion, I guess, Kellie, just needs to be had.
Yeah, that was a post in October, so I do feel like you are hanging me out to dry, and you know me by now, and you know you're going to get the truth off me, and that's exactly the truth as it is, as I'm sitting here now. I feel like you've brought that up to try and bring up a bit of controversy.
Certainly not. People will know it's not my style. It's not my style to look for controversy or to quote controversy. I genuinely just feel if anyone posts anything on social media or says something in an interview, those are beliefs that are strongly held and thought out.
That was in October. Like you said, it was in October. Like, we're now nearly heading into April.
Hi Shane, just to put in there, we've probably about 5 minutes left if we maybe want to move on to the next one.
Yeah, no, it's an issue.
No, I totally understand it's a question and you have to ask it and everything, but
probably best.
Yeah, it's probably best to move on from it.
Is it not right that we have the discussion? I guess, Kellie, is my point.
Is that what you want to waste the time on, though? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many other questions that you could ask me. I'm not a politician. You know what I mean? I'm.
But why is it time waste? And I know, you're, as I said at the outset, you're an ambassador to young people and to people, and these are views that some people would see as controversial when it comes to immigrants. I would argue, speaking personally, that welcoming immigrants into our country can add so much to the culture of Dublin.
That's
to
what
Ireland.
you would argue. That's what you would argue, and that's fine.
But is that not fair?
I'm not having that argument with you. I'm not even open to the discussion with you.
Probably best. I think, guys, it's probably best to move on. To be honest, we're here today for SPAR and their media event, which Kellie is an ambassador for. So maybe if we want to pop in another question or two and move on from it.
Yeah, and the SPAR slogan and I read it out at the start, was to back local communities to drive positive change and impact. So is it not a fair question then to?
You're like a dog with a bone.
Well, no, Kellie. But the point is, you were saying there that you felt I was hanging you out to dry when that's completely not the intention of my question. The question is just to bring up a discussion on people having views on social media and backing them up.
Here we go. Right, if you're not hanging me out to dry, let it go. Move on. Be like Elsa and just let it go. Do you know what I mean? Don't hold it back anymore. Just let it go and move on.
I don't feel like it's my job to ask questions, Kellie.
I know it's your job, and you've asked, and I've responded, and I've told you. Next question. Like, I'm not here to answer those questions. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to talk about politics. Like, if I wanted to do that, I'd go and I'd do a degree in politics. But
no, but you've put these views forward on social media. Does that not allow them open to be questioned?
I think Kellie has said that she doesn't really want to talk about it, so it probably is best. Maybe I appreciate.
I don't know what agenda you have, Shane, but it's obviously not a good one. So.
Certainly don't have an agenda. I just wanted to ask.
Over now, I'm done.
Okay, well, listen, Kellie, appreciate your time anyway, regardless. Irish Olympian Kellie Harrington there. Join us on the line to have a discussion, and clearly they wanted to end that discussion there. But yeah, that's OTB AM, and we'll be back shortly.
So we're back instantaneously. We obviously recorded that yesterday around about 10 o'clock, and it's been quite a 24 hours. Obviously the match took precedence in terms of the show this morning. I do feel like we probably can have many sane, rational conversations off the back of some of the issues that came up on this. Like, some people are arguing that sports people have no responsibility. Some people are arguing that because you're a community ambassador and the role that you're being paid for in that instance is to be a community ambassador, then it's fair enough to have conversations around things. Like, are people not entitled to have opinions? Absolutely, people are entitled to have opinions, was one of the things that came back to us. But if you have an opinion, you're also entitled to be asked about it. It's not like you can have an opinion and then you know, that's it. You don't get to speak about it ever again afterwards.
Yeah, it's the notion. And look, Kellie was speaking as we said, as a Spar ambassador in a paid role. And you probably heard the voice in the background, and that, as we said, it's kind of opening the kimono a little bit for some people, because a lot of these interviews that have an ambassador promoting a product or a company, there'll often be a public relations person, spokesperson, kind of in the background, and you never hear from them or hear of them. Certainly, you usually don't hear them interjecting in an interview, but clearly yesterday, maybe Spar weren't happy with the direction the interview was taking. But as we've said, sports people can be held accountable to and that's why I asked the question. Kellie could have said whatever she wanted. It's a free world, and her response was her response. The response to it since has been quite extraordinary, to be honest. I've got so many messages myself even about it from people. Which I'll try and get back to today, but it was just like Kellie, of course, and I referenced it in the interview as well. Like a couple of times, she referenced that I was, like a dog with a bone, that I had an agenda, that I was looking for controversy, and I said this in the interview, but I'll reiterate it again. That is absolutely not my style. Anyone who knows me, and there's probably a lot of people watching who know me, friends, family, and colleagues as well, know that that's not my style. Okay,
and to be honest though, the people who don't know you are coming across you for the first time, so you need to talk to them as much as the people who you can't rely on just the word of mouth of the people who know you. But certainly there's been your track record does not suggest that you're looking for salacious, except when it comes to Park Ji-sung, of course. And but we all make mistakes.
Or Monaghan, yeah, absolutely. So it was one of those things that I think that needed to be addressed, and that's one thing I certainly wanted to kind of hammer home again this morning. Maybe.
And if you've just joined us, we did read out Kellie Harrington's statement, which he issued late last night at around about 10 past 11. You can check that out on her social media at Kellie64kg. Right, that is your lot for today. Make sure you subscribe to all of our social channels. Tomorrow's show, you had to be there with... We're going to leave you now with the classic "You Had to Be There" from former Republic of Ireland manager Sue Ronan. We've got a brilliant one coming your way tomorrow.
Thursday.
That's Thursday. Tomorrow's only Tuesday.
I know, it's mad, isn't it?
Why? That's not fair.
What a week.
Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Today's Tuesday.
That's mad.
We have lost many, many days in the last 24 hours. Sometimes nothing happens in a lifetime, and then a lot happens in 24 hours. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy whatever's next. Good luck.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
It's so unexpected.
It's one of those you had to be there moments.
You had to be there.
It subsequently genuinely did change everything about my life.
You had to be there.
Alright, it's one of our favourite slots. It's where we ask somebody why you had to be there on 5 separate different occasions where it really felt like